Okay, great. Okay. All right, I think we've got everyone now, so go ahead and start, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we will open the City of Bishop City Council meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2020. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Mahoney,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
I'm here. That was me.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here,
Thank you.
thank you. And we have time for public comment. If we received any comments on matters not on our agenda this evening, I believe I saw at least one, right, Robin?
Yes, I can read that if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think they asked for it to be read, but if you,
Okay. It says, there is an ongoing problem with our city park playground closure. Caution tape around the playground is on the ground shortly after it goes up. Tape on ground apparently means open. Some families play, others say no to kids. The park needs help affording rubber garden fencing that is possible. Less likely to be immediately taken down. No one is in charge of sanitizing play structures. While making sure businesses have masks, can the park be given masks for use by people unable to maintain distancing guidelines while enjoying park activities? Perhaps pull down dispensers, pop-up boxes. Signage that indicates this is a health code requirement might help educate any adults in charge. The park is perfect for fresh air play, church, and school. Somehow we need to protect young people who don't get the message. And this is from ynotita@protonmail.com.
okay, thank you. Mr. Phillips, did you want to have Dan, if he's with us, or any response at all at this time?
I don't believe we have a response. We'll certainly look into it.
Okay. That was it for matters not on the agenda, Robin?
Right, and there's one more here that says, please read out loud during public comments. Oh, never mind, that's for cannabis as well.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
You have to keep your voice ready for later, right, Robin?
Yes. I've been sorting it. We've
I
got
know
so
you
much-
have. I know
Yeah.
you did a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into closed session for a conference with labor negotiators. So we'll leave this meeting, right?
Right, so,
So Paul, you're going to get if you've not done this before, she's going to send us to a breakout room. So you'll see a prompt on your screen which says enter breakout room. Go ahead and click on that when you see it.
Pleasure
okay.
that.
So we have Paul, Ron, Karen. Okay. I'm clicking on them, but it's not happening.
This may be part of the problem people have been experiencing with Zoom today.
Okay. Do this. I'll break out room 2. See if that helps. Okay. Are you guys getting a notice?
Not yet.
I have not.
There we go.
I just did.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right, once you're in, you close this door. Okay, we're in closed session right now. Good. How's it look? Should be short. They're gonna pull one item, I understand. Yeah.
Robin.
Hi, they're all in closed session still, and we're being recorded on YouTube at this time.
I figured so, but I was just testing my mic.
You're good. Connecting everyone right now. Thank you, everyone. They should be joining us shortly in a few more minutes. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Certainly.
Great, I see Evie and Eric Simmons is coming on. Good.
Robin, can you
Yes.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I got a new set of these things, and I just want to make sure they work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we should be coming back in, Robin.
Robin, Chris is waiting to be admitted.
Sorry, I admitted him. Thank you.
Hey, Robin.
Yes.
I'm trying to switch over to my Chromebook. Do you see me? It looks like you've let me in, but I have no sound or anything on it. I'm hoping I don't have to do the whole meeting on my phone.
Well, I can
Well,
hear
let's-
you, but you're saying you don't.
It says connecting to audio, Chris. There you go. You're on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to disconnect from my phone and hopefully I'll be going on the Chromebook. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so let me resume. So you ready, Frida? Okay, let me turn you on. Okay. I'm going to be on Suddenlink here. We're going to resume recording on Zoom. And I'll resume recording on Granicus. Okay. When Madam Mayor is ready, we can resume.
Okay, perfect. We will go into open session now for our City of Bishop City Council meeting for Monday, August 4th, 2020. And I would like to mention that item B under new business has been pulled this evening and will probably come back at our next council meeting on September 14th. Our invocation this evening will be given by Father John Gracie of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church here in Bishop. And our Mayor Pro Tem, Chris Costello, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. For those of you that would wish to stand now, please stand. Father Gracie, go ahead whenever you're ready, please.
Okay, good. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. God, our loving Father, in this time of trial, distress, and pandemic, our need for your guidance is more necessary than ever. Send your Holy Spirit upon us to help us in our need and to realize that apart from you, we cannot hope for success, but that with your divine inspiration, we will make decisions that will not only help our community to grow and flourish, but will reflect your splendor, so that through our efforts and your guidance, we will then stand as an example to others of how, with your help, all things are possible. Guide us and bless us in our lives and in our efforts to build a better world. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, would you join me, face towards the flag, and we'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it
stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Everybody may be seated. And may we have roll call, please? Robin Picken. Robin?
She's muted.
And the sirens just went by. Sorry about that. Councilmember Mahoney?
Here.
Councilmember Ellis?
Here.
Councilmember Schwartz?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now whoa. What do you do about echo feedback?
You sound fine, Madam Mayor.
Okay. It's just me, I guess. Okay, so we have public comment time on matters that are not on our agenda this evening. And we already read some earlier. Do we have any more right now, Robin?
No.
Okay.
No further.
Okay, thank you. We will move on then to item number 10, reporting on actions taken in our closed session. And it was simply direction given to our staff. So we'll move on to our presentation this evening. We have one presentation on Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA flood insurance rate maps briefing. And this will be presented by FEMA Region 9 National Flood Insurance Program Insurance Specialist Edie Lohman and FEMA Region 9 Engineer Eric Simmons. Do we have them with us this evening?
Yes, we do. I
Yes.
think Eric and Edie, are you
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Yep, there's Eric.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
Good. So just quickly, FEMA is here tonight, Eric and Edie, to update anybody and council and the public about the new flood maps that will be out in December of this year. And without further ado, I'll let the experts take this over.
Hey, great. Well, thank you, Dustin. And this is Eric Simmons with FEMA. I've been an engineer with FEMA for about 15 years and very happy to be able to talk to you today about flood hazard mapping and revised flood insurance rate maps that are going in effect for the city as well as Inyo County on December 3rd. So we did prepare about 10 slides to share. I can try doing that on my end, or
Yep.
that's better.
Go ahead, Eric.
And, I think if there's any questions as we go along, happy to take those. And, welcome any questions on flood hazard mapping, on flood insurance, on risk communication. We are finding that's definitely an important topic with both fires and pandemic on the top of the news recently. So hoping everybody can see just kind of the discussion topics. We thought we bring up an overview of this flood study for Bishop Creek and the entire watershed, some revised flood map products from FEMA, and we talk a little bit about how that may impact someone's purchase of flood insurance, the rating of insurance, and maybe some public messages we can be consistent on in terms of the National Flood Insurance Program. And definitely welcome any questions, and we can take those either now or at the end. But FEMA has been working with the county and city for over 4 years now on this flood insurance rate map revision that goes in effect for insurance purposes on December 3rd. So there's a lot of new engineering data behind that, hydrology and hydraulics. And what does that really result in? It results in a revised flood insurance rate map. And that map shows areas of high risk, moderate risk, and low risk to flooding. And so I'll cover those pretty quickly. But I think a couple key points to remember. Fortunately, in the city of Bishop and around that area, flood risk is a lot lower than other areas in California or the West. Just the ability for flooding to get deep and the amount of rain to fall is lower. But where it can rain, it can flood. So there's no such thing as a property having no flood risk. And let me just kind of go to this next slide here, where the most important information on a flood insurance rate map is this high risk zone. It's typically mapped as a zone AE or a zone A. It's the 1% annual chance floodplain. So what's that? It's often called the 100-year floodplain. It's an area that can flood. A 1% annual chance flood is a major event. It's something that it's rare, but does happen, and bigger floods happen every year too. And so on FEMA mapping, these high-risk zones are typically mapped zone AE and zone A. The E in AE stands for base flood elevation, and we're fortunate here for the Bishop Creek watershed study to have a very detailed and rigorous study where we have these flood elevations, have very detailed information on where water will flow and how deep they'll be. So that's the high risk area. In some reaches along Bishop Creek and the South Fork, FEMA has mapped a regulatory floodway, which is a floodplain management tool of the channel and associated floodplain that needs to be conveyed and kept open so it doesn't make flooding worse on others. But the flood insurance rate maps also show moderate risk zones, and that's typically the 500-year floodplain, or called the 0.2% annual chance floodplain. And it's noted with this shaded zone X, so kind of that orangish shade. And it's a moderate risk area. So it's important to realize there is risk there. But what we'll talk about a little bit later is where insurance might be required for people. They're not required in this moderate risk zone, but typically a lender will require flood insurance in that mapped high risk zone, that 1% annual chance floodplain. And then there's also areas outside that 0.2% annual chance floodplain. It's mapped as an unshaded zone X. Again, no mandatory flood insurance requirement there, but it's a the most common flood zone, and much of City of Bishop is in this lower risk area. So that's just mapping as a summary, but it's a flood insurance rate map. So its biggest impact is on the purchase of flood insurance, the rating or requirement of flood insurance. And I'm very happy today to be joined by my office's flood insurance specialist. We work closely together, Her name's Edie Lohman. So let me hand it to Edie to cover some basics on flood insurance.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Eric. As Eric said, it's a real pleasure to be here today, and we're happy to answer all of your questions. And Eric and I do a lot of these meetings together, and we like to talk about the maps first so that you know a little bit, you have some background when we get to the insurance piece. But basically, as Eric already mentioned, there is under federal law a mandatory purchase requirement for those people who have buildings located in the 1% annual chance area or the 100-year floodplain, or also known as any type of flood zone AE or zone A. And it's for those people whose building are touching those floodplains and they have a federally backed loan. So the lender, once the map goes effective on December 3rd, the lender will require flood insurance for any building that is located in one of these AE flood zones or any type of zone A for that matter. And as Eric mentioned, there is no mandatory flood insurance purchase requirement in the 2% annual chance floodplain or the unshaded X zone. So the 2% annual chance is that tan area that Eric showed on the map. That's a 500-year floodplain where there's a moderate risk of flooding. And then outside of that was the last slide where it's the unshaded zone X where there's a low risk. But we often tell people that moderate and low risk is not the equivalent of no risk, because the NFIP program sees a tremendous number of claims out of these shaded and unshaded X zone areas. So we recommend that people do talk to their insurance agent about flood insurance. And for those people who are going to be newly mapped into a special flood hazard area for the first time, we have some opportunities for them to potentially save money by purchasing a flood insurance policy before those new maps go effective. They want to go and talk to their insurance agent about getting a preferred risk policy, and that's going to provide them with the lowest cost flood insurance that we have available, and it will also provide them with the best rating options down the road, which we call grandfathering. So that's really important. Next slide. So we have three scenarios, really. We have people that are going from the low risk or the moderate risk area to the high risk area. And as we just discussed, those people, if they have a federally backed loan and the building touches the A zone, any type of A zone, if it begins with the letter A as in Adam, then they will be required to have flood insurance under the federal law. And there is, again, some opportunities for them. We want to message that people should talk to their insurance agent early so they can ask their insurance agent about a preferred risk policy and about those opportunities for the lower cost policy. Likewise, if we have folks coming out of the high risk area and going into the low to moderate risk area, we always want to encourage them, even though they will no longer have a mandatory purchase requirement because they're going to now be in a low to moderate risk area, to purchase flood insurance and to keep the coverage consistent, because the water does not read flood maps, basically is what it boils down to. And because we see at least 20 to 25% of our claims, and I think in our region, it's actually higher than that 20 to 25% of people who experience claims in those low to moderate risk areas. So those people that currently have flood insurance, they're in a high-risk area, they're being transitioned to a low to moderate risk area, they can easily have their insurance agent transition their policy over to the lower cost policy, stay covered, and get a refund all in one easy transaction. And that's really what we want to see them do. And then the third scenario would be no change in risk level. And so these folks would not have any change in their insurance requirement, and property owners, really, it's a great time for them to have a conversation with their insurance agent to talk about their specific risk. Has there been any changes to their risk? If so, is there opportunities for savings? And do they have the right types and amounts of insurance? So we always want to talk about that. And so one of the questions, I would say one of the most frequently asked questions is, why are some flood zones changing? Well, it's really a reflection of a combination of things. We have new technologies that allow us to better determine flood-prone areas and really to predict the extent of future events. We have updated flood hazard information that helps inform decisions to allow your community to build safer and stronger, and we certainly want to take advantage of all of that. Over time, flood risks do change. There's different patterns that occur due to land use and natural forces that need to be incorporated into the maps, and we want to let people know what those risks are, and if they're building, that's what these maps are for, is to help them understand what the risks are. And also, we want to more accurately reflect, the current hazards in the Bishop Creek watershed. So people will ask this question, and really it's a combination of factors where we try to keep these maps as up to date as possible because they're used for so many things. And then the second popular question that we often get is, but it's never flooded at my house. And just because it hasn't flooded there yet doesn't mean it won't flood there in the future. And so FEMA maps, as Eric mentioned, the 1% annual chance flood, meaning the flood with a 1% or greater chance of occurring in any given year. But we do know that bigger floods happen every single year. And again, 25% of our insurance claims in the United States, on average, are really outside of these high risk or special flood hazard areas. So we do have a procedure that property owners who want to dispute their flood zone determination can use. And if they have to submit new data in the form of technical information, and they would want to apply for something called a letter of map amendment or a letter of map revision. So their dispute of their flood zone really has to be based on new technical data that FEMA can evaluate. And I don't know, Eric, if you have any additions to that before we move on, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, this flood hazard mapping project's been a great collaboration between FEMA, the city, and the county. And so that just continues the work together under the National Flood Insurance Program to help communicate risk, to, in addition to the county-wide mapping that was done about 10 years ago for Inyo County. And so if there's, concerns or people that want to submit this technical data, FEMA is available to help work with Destin or whoever at the city to address their comments and make sure those forms get in the right place. So our last slide here is just some context. We are available in the future, but welcome your questions right now.
Okay.
Hey, this is Councilmember Chris Costello. And just a quick question. When you did the mapping, we have a couple of utilities in the area, as you know, DWP and Edison, that have gone to great strides to mitigate flooding in peak snow years. Was that kind of information taken into account when you did the flood zones?
It was. We coordinated with a number of stakeholders, but to understand the flood hazards in Bishop, we looked at the whole watershed. So FEMA's contractor developed what's called a hydrologic model of the entire Bishop Creek watershed. So that included the different reservoirs and routing along channels in the watershed. So we were able to coordinate with different partners to get that information.
So one of my questions, I guess it's not necessarily directed at you, but I'm looking at the updated maps for the city of Bishop, the detailed ones that are in the staff report. And effectively what we're saying is that anything that's now in blue falls in that 100-year floodplain. And these are the residences that they're required to get flood insurance, or only if they have a mortgage, they have to get flood insurance?
Yes. So
go ahead, Eric.
The requirement for buying flood insurance will come from a lender. So if you own your property outright, own your home or business outright, there's nobody who could require flood insurance. So I'm not sure the exact map you have, but fortunately all the mapping today is done digitally and can be shared online and color coded. But that high risk zone along the channels.
Right. So I mean, the ones that I'm mainly seeing impacted are the homes near Rome Drive, the homes, a bunch of homes in J Diamond, and some on the east side of town as well, but although not that many because that area is not populated. Do we have a plan? I guess this question is for Destin. Do we have a plan to at least send a letter to all of those homeowners that are directly affected to let them know that this is happening?
Yes, we do, Councilman Hovey. And in August of 19, we sent them initial letters. These plans, the new maps were already developed by then. So we sent each of them a letter, told them what was going on, the appeal process if they cared to appeal it. And then again, after this meeting, we'll send letters out to them again and say the maps are going to take effect. And also at the east side of town, which would be East Yaney down there, those are coming out of the 100 year and into the 500 year. So we'll notify them as well that they may be able to look at readjusting their insurance. And you're right, there's quite a few on the south side of Rome Drive, but it'll be our letter will be very, you need to talk to your bank and your insurance company because it may touch your property, but not your building. So that needs to be decided by the bank and the insurance though.
Right. I see the Catholic Church is also newly added.
Correct. Yes. And then all the new homes at the nursery track, but they won't have the option of getting it ahead of time.
Right.
Okay, anybody else? Anything for Eric or Edie? No, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Really good information for everybody. Glad to hear that Destin and his team are going to be getting those letters out to the residents that will be affected.
Yes,
great,
definitely.
Great to know about it ahead of time.
Yeah, it is. And I, once again, thank you, Eric and Edie, and for all your help. They've been a great resource through this.
Good. Okay. If there isn't anything else, then we will move on to our item number 12 on the agenda, which is our Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau update from our Executive Director, Tawny Thompson. Do we have Tawny with us this evening?
Yes, I'm here. I apologize. My camera is on the fritz. Can you hear me okay? I'm going through my phone.
I can hear you very well. And then I also wanted to ask and make sure everybody had gotten Tawny's report. We're good? Okay, I believe that we've all had the opportunity. Thank you so much for submitting the report, Tawny.
Yes, no problem. Does anybody have any questions? Or if not, I have one little update for you.
I don't have a question necessarily on your on what's in the report. I was just I'm happy to I'm happy to hear that you guys are definitely imparting on people who are reaching out to the chamber about cleaning up after themselves and leave no trace, because that has definitely been a problem as of late.
Yeah, so from the Visitors Bureau side of things, we're not really doing any marketing that's proactively asking people to visit our destination right now. But we are using our resources and our talents and our connections with our visitors to try to influence them to do the right thing on lots of fronts. As far as the leave no trace messaging, no campfires, clean up after yourself, like you said, just general good outdoor etiquette, and also to respect the COVID protocols. And it's okay if we have guests that are kind of like our friends and family that respect us, and they're the kind of visitors we want to have back. So we're using our talents and our resources to try to connect with those folks, and we seem to be getting better compliance.
That's great. And any other questions for Tawny? Tawny, you had an extra comment you want to add?
I do. I actually just two quick things. One, as a reminder to the public that if they'd like to apply for the Bishop Rotary Club funded micro grants, those are due by this Friday, the 28th. So just a reminder to the public, it's a real straightforward application that's on the Bishop Chamber of Commerce website. And the other thing that I wanted to, just as an update on fish planting. So in my report, it talks about the previous 2 plantings, and then our third for Bishop Creek Canyon was on hold. And that was because at the last minute, Fish and Wildlife wanted to make sure that they tested those fish that were coming from Idaho to make sure that they didn't also have the bacteria that, was so detrimental to our fish hatcheries here. So I got a phone call early this morning from the hatchery in Idaho, and they have, those fish are cleared, they're healthy. So we're expecting that third load of supplemental fish later this week. So just kind of wanted to, I know that you guys had asked for an update on fish stocking, so.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Tawny.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, and I, always just reach out if you have any questions.
We will. Okay, we'll move on to our department head reports, and we'll start with our Fire Chief, Joe Dell.
Good evening, Mayor. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're a little bit busy. I'd like to start off the night by remembering Pete Hine. Pete was a Big Pine volunteer, retired from CAL FIRE, also worked for the Forest Service. He recently passed away while working at the Stagecoach Fire in Kern County. He was working on an AD assignment for the Forest Service, and he passed away from a medical emergency. Right now we're awaiting ceremony details, but what we'll miss most about Pete is his sense of humor and his passion to the force or to the fire service in general. He was a great trainer and a great friend, and the Big Pine family and some of us up here in Bishop will miss him. The next update we have is COVID. The care center has seen a significant outbreak. There's been multiple other unrelated clusters throughout the county, and we've been put on the watch list. It's really put a strain on EMS. The hospital reports that it's had the busiest July ever of ambulance arrivals. The BFD has been assisting on several calls where there's been simultaneous calls and no ambulance available. We're trying to plug some holes where there are. And then, of course, the big news right now is the state of California is currently on fire. It's estimated that there's 250 fires throughout the state, including 24 large complexes. Close to home, we have the beach fire that is wrapping up, almost finished in Mono County, which is right on the lake. And then the North Range fire, which none of us have really heard about, is on the China Lake Naval Warfare Center. And that one was up to 51,000 acres. And at one point was threatening Darwin, but took a turn and made a push to the east. Currently, Bishop Fire has Engine 4, which is a Type 3 engine with 4 personnel out on the Carmel Fire in Monterey County. They're on a 14-day assignment, and they're assisting where they can. Today's their day off, but they've been working extremely hard up to this point, little rest and bumping from fire to fire. They started on a different fire, got emergency demobbed from that, and moved over to the Carmel Fire because they were losing homes. So far, there's been 35 homes lost in that particular fire. We've also been staffing an Engine 3 over here over the weekend, another Type 3 engine, mostly because of the lack of state and federal resources. They've all been out on other fires. As the beach fire's wrapping up, there's more federal resources available, and then CAL FIRE's got a couple more, and 2 engines in the county. So I think we're going to stop staffing that here at 8 p.m. we finish up. However, we are expecting, there's been lightning storms in Bishop, Big Pine, and Aspendale in the afternoon, and then Mono County is expecting dry lightning throughout the night. So we'll see what happens. The smoke that's come over and inundated all of Owens Valley today is coming from the Castle Fire, which is in the Sequoia National Forest, bumping into the Inyo National Forest on the Kern Plateau, up in the Golden Trout Wilderness. And that's my report, unless there's any questions.
I'm glad that they were able to get the beach fire, under control relatively, without huge acreage involved. I know our son was up there on his dozer on that, and I heard through other means, not through him, he was chased out a couple of times because of how wild and erratic the winds got. So glad to have that one under control on our forest. Anyway, the rest of the state, yeah. It's tough.
Joe, with the Castle Fire being in wilderness, there aren't really many firefighting efforts, given that it's not populated, and we have fires in the state that are near population centers, right?
Yeah, with the drawdown, all those decisions are pretty tough. Where to send resources, what to do. I imagine that, and I don't know, because I really haven't researched what exactly they're doing. But a lot of the times they try and steer those fires with helicopter bucket drops into rocks and that kind of stuff. I do know that they're not really trying to let anything burn this year. They want to put it out because of kind of the situation with COVID and resources, but it all depends on how much resources they'll be able to throw at it. So I don't assume that there'll be an aggressive attack up in the wilderness area for it.
It's great that we could get in and help out.
I think we can expect smoke for the rest of the summer and into the fall, unfortunately.
Yeah. Rain would be nice, right?
I've been doing my rain dance.
Okay, good. All right. Anything for Joe, anybody? All righty. Thank you so much for your report, Joe. And someday you're going to get a rest. I know you will. Police Chief Ted Steck, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Since we last met, we had range training at night, which included a policy review as well. We had a few police activities, social media notifications, one involving a warrant arrest in which the adult female detainee quickly spun on the arresting officer and grabbed his holstered firearm. Both officers present reacted appropriately to this sudden and dangerous situation. It was the second time that this has happened since I've been here. The next involved another arrest warrant, but without incident, thankfully. And then we had another media push involving the arrest of an adult female who had stolen expensive binoculars from a local sporting goods store. Shortly thereafter, a follow-up push regarding the arrest of two others who may have helped the female that was arrested earlier. And a male in that arrest also had an arrest warrant out of another area that had to do with explosives or weapons. And there was drug paraphernalia in the car as well. We also did a public announcement to postpone our National Night Out until October 6th. Everyone at the department was so excited about NNO number 3. The first one was kind of an experiment, and it went over really well. Then number 2 was fantastic. And then we immediately started the planning for number 3, which should have happened earlier this month. Bigger and different, and we're hoping that we can do it in October, but of course it's COVID-19 that may or may not postpone it. So we'll see how it goes, but we're just going month by month on that. And that's all I have for tonight, unless any of you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything for Chief Steck?
Yeah, I was just amused by the badge byline where a woman called 911 and then it was early morning and she said, "Oh, I just haven't had my coffee yet."
Oh my God. I guess some people consider that, yeah, emergency.
Well, I love my coffee, but I wouldn't dial 911 for that.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Chief. We'll move on to our Public Works Director, Destin Deshawn, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. First off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what you'll be seeing on Main Street. At the request of El Ranchito last week, they asked if they could put chairs and tables on Main Street sidewalk. Caltrans sent them to me because the city has to get that permit for them. Kind of gives us some responsibility to help make sure it's done correctly. But just late this afternoon, I got the approved permit from Caltrans. And so hopefully we'll see some chairs and tables and such. They approved the permit to go from the movie theater to Academy Avenue. So pick up the yogurt shop, El Ranchito, and Amigos right now. And then they have adequate space on the sidewalk to leave an ADA path. So I'm excited to see that take off. I hope it goes all over the city after that, where there's room. Second, after our last meeting, when I informed you about the Caltrans rehab project on Main Street in a couple of years, had contact with Caltrans. Yes, they're going to be circulating the project in April for public comment and review, and will not even start plans until that's had about 4 months of public circulation. So that's good news. We had the Spruce Hanby Sidewalks pre-bid meeting, and that's not that exciting. The exciting part was there were 6 potential bidders that came to the meeting. So that's a great news for the project to have some competitiveness going on. And that opens at our next council meeting. I hope to be bringing a project to award to you. And lastly, there hasn't been a lot going on with the JPA, with the wastewater JPA, but I just wanted to let you know that we'll be meeting again in September to be putting together a preliminary budget. Once we get that preliminary budget somewhat figured out, then at the next council meeting, I'll bring it to the full council for their approval. And then we have to formally adopt that budget before October 25th. So hope things are moving along. DWP is moving at their pace. You know, that property sale is moving forward, but it'll take, probably a couple years at least before that comes to fruition. But I just wanted to let you know what's been going on because we haven't had a lot of discussion about it lately. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions of me.
Okay, thank you, Destin. Anybody have anything for Destin?
Destin, quick question. Everything's still moving forward over in Kingston smoothly?
I'm sorry, Jim. I wasn't loud enough. Could you ask that again?
Everything's still progressing smoothly over in the Kingston property?
Correct. Yes, they're still doing work on the houses, the first half of them back there, getting the infrastructure ready. But yeah, he actually was wanting to do a final map so that he could get funding proper, at a better value, with the lots being worth more. But he thinks that he can move forward on his own and quickly. So he's already got so much interest. He says they're basically all sold if he wanted them to be. Yeah, it's very promising project.
Yeah, definitely needed. Is Mr. Kingston still involved, or did he sell?
He's sold it now. It's Elaine might help me with the name. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Bill Paris.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure what the connection is between them, or if there is any at all, but they're excited about it and they're moving forward, and they're also been very cooperative about not being noisy before 7 a.m.
Yes, they have been. Yeah, very quiet.
Destin, how long does the permit last for El Ranchito?
So that's a temporary permit that's through the governor's proclamation for the emergency. So probably through, I believe, about Thanksgiving. But Caltrans, I did some talking, not just filling out permits, and they're very in favor of this, actually. And this is a great trial for them. It could be something that could go on longer than that.
Yeah, it sounds fun. To me, it's like State Street, Santa Barbara. It has that, just that shopping along the downtown corridor feel.
Exactly. And it's right on with the comments that were at the public meetings for the downtown project that Elaine is managing.
That's great.
Destin pointed something out this morning in the department head meeting, that if they do choose to put tables and chairs out there, because it's on the public sidewalk, anyone can go sit there. So
all right.
The restaurant doesn't get exclusive use of those. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be interesting, right? And there definitely will still be room for wheelchairs to go by.
Correct.
Yeah, still have ADA access.
Thank you, Councilman Costello, for reminding me of that.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you for your great report, Destin, and we'll move on to our Community Services Manager, Dan McElroy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay, Mayor?
I can hear you perfect.
Thank you. Just tonight, I'd like to open up by, of course, thanking our staff. Number one is Brittany Wiles in the after school program, CJ at Kind, Carrie, of course, behind the scenes doing everything that she possibly can to make all of our programs go right now, and Waylon Cleland. Waylon's been filling in at the after school program and picking up where necessary. So programs are going good. So after school program is in the books with week 1, and our Kind program is in the books with week 1. As we move forward with programming, and of course, smoke in the valley, that is evaluated every day. We do have a city policy in place to make sure that we're not exercising or doing rigorous activities during heavy particulate times. So just keep that in mind. If there is a cancellation or something, it is because of usually because of heavy smoke. In the city park, we continue to prep and clean and get ready for Labor Day. I would expect that Labor Day weekend is going to be busy, even though we do have the cancellation of the Art in the Park from the Arts Council. I'm still planning on it being very busy. Along those lines in the park, we'll be working on the Yaney ditch, which is the ditch that runs by the dog park down to the end of Yaney Street, just clearing and getting all the debris and weeds and growth out of the creek to create flow. We'll also be conducting irrigation audits, and we'll begin our fall fertilization and aeration in the city park. Our city park pool continues to operate at a limited schedule. Everything is in the afternoon, starting at about 4 o'clock and going to 7:30 at night. And at City Hall, we were able to purchase, thanks to City Council, and have installed the new air conditioning unit for the Sheriff's Department. That kind of concludes my report tonight. Oh, sorry, one more thing is I'll be back with a staff report for Unit 1 of Sunrise Mobile Home Park, but we're also prepping for the potential sale of Unit 12. And with the help of Public Works, and again, Waylon and Sam, we were able to replace one of the driveways at Unit number 8, which required some actual leveling of her building so that she can move back in. That does conclude my report tonight. So if there's any questions, I will gladly answer them.
You know, Dan, I made a comment, I think at our last meeting about all the, you know, how much trash you were saying because of the to-go packages and for our restaurants. And you go to a restaurant and you can get the same item to go somewhere and they package it and they put it in the big, you know, clamshell container and put that in a bag for you and whatever. But Mercado, just the other day, you know, we went in and we got a little bit to go and they wrap it in a paper and that's wrapped in a foil and things that can be wrapped that way, such as burritos or whatever. And they give that to you. And I thought, isn't that great without all of that packaging and styrofoam and plastic? And yeah, really nice that people are trying to lessen some of the trash for you.
Yeah, it's just not for me. It's you know, it's a I don't want to say an epidemic, but it kind of is in every campground, in every facility, you know, countywide. So it's not just something that the city park is dealing with. It's basically every facility, every private business owner that has a dumpster. So it's not just the city park. It's spread pretty wide in the you know, the more we can reduce trash and the more we can recycle, the better. So
yeah, speaking of recycle, I want to shout out to Amigos and their dining area in the back there and how they repurposed the pallet wood for their furniture, all made out of repurposed pallet wood. It's gorgeous. If people haven't seen it, you have to go look at it. And that's keeping pallet wood out of the landfill.
Hey, Dan, we did have a public comment that we read at 5:30. I don't know if you heard it, but one of the chief complaints or just really announcement from this person was that the tape that's used around the new playground gets torn down and then people play on it. And, you know, it was a little unrealistic. I mean, we want to keep people safe, but, you know, we're going to hopefully open that soon. But I wonder, do you try and put the caution tape back up regularly to keep people from letting their kids play on it?
yeah, we do it every single morning. We make sure that there's fresh caution tape, but there's also signs. And then we do have help from the police department for patrols in the afternoons. So typically that stuff happens at night where nobody's going to go, you know what I mean, is you know, so breaking that rule, so to speak, isn't, you know, that big of a deal, but we do replace the tape every day and the signs as well. So
we haven't tased any kids yet, huh?
No, it's really not kids that are doing it, unfortunately.
Okay, anything else for Dan? Anybody? All right, thanks for your great report. We'll move on to our Associate Planner, Economic Development Coordinator, Elaine Kabala, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I only have a couple of quick updates for you. The first is when I came before you a couple of weeks ago, I let you know that we would be getting feedback from businesses and property owners along Whitney Alley for our Whitney Alley Streetscaping project. And I've started to get those surveys back and hear back from businesses and take phone calls. And largely, there's a lot of support for the project. People are really excited to get some green spaces in there and make it more attractive and friendlier and safer. Although I have heard that concerns about reducing any number of parking spaces is pretty consistent among property owners and businesses. So the next steps for that project is that we will be going out for public input starting next week. In a similar format of just trying to get feedback and design ideas and interests from the community. And then over the fall, we'll be developing different design alternatives, taking those back to the community for input, and then eventually to the council for approval. I also wanted to let you know, per Councilman Costello's request, that a brochure or document is put together for the specific plan project. I was provided a opportunities and constraints memo from Alta, who are our consultants, today, and that documents the public input that they received, as well as the ideas that were discussed in those July 23rd public input meetings. And this document will be used to then inform the policies and ideas that they will come back to the community for public input on in October. And then I will be making that opportunities and constraints report publicly available to the council and putting it on our website tomorrow. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Anybody have anything for Elaine? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to our city administrator, Mr. Ron Phillips, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Those are all wonderful reports from our department heads and staff, and I appreciate all the work that they do. I think you all are aware that as of the end of last week, it was determined that we needed to close City Hall to the public once again because of the surge in COVID cases, and also due to the fact that virtual school was beginning and a number of our employees need to work occasionally from home. So it's very difficult at times to provide the kind of staff coverage in the office that is necessary. So for now, City Hall is closed to the public, but anyone interested in needing to talk with city staff in City Hall are welcome to call and make an appointment, and we will accommodate anyone that has that type of a need. Also, Dan mentioned the air conditioner that serves the sheriff's office. That became an emergency situation. We were able to hold it together long enough to go out for 3 quotes from 3 different companies, and took the lowest quote to make that replacement. But it was done as an emergency, and was very necessary. We were losing Freon frequently, and there was no way to repair it. So we're glad to have that accomplished and done. And we may need to do that again with some of the other units that are old, and but we're not going to rush in and do more until absolutely necessary. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. Anybody have anything for our city administrator? All righty, we're good. We will move on then. Thank you, everybody, department heads. We will move on to our consent calendar. And items in the consent calendar are considered routine, and we act on them by one motion. We do have a request, however, that our assistant finance director, Ms. Jenny Rodrigues, to review for us item 14AB before we approve the consent calendar, please. Jenny, do we have you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead if you're ready, please.
I apologize. It was 14.
It's 14A dot B. I mean, 5, I'm sorry, A5.
Okay,
Monthly budget report, Jenny, for
yes.
the month of June, yeah.
All right, I apologize. What did we need to?
I believe it was just maybe, did a council member have a question on this item?
I believe City Administrator Phillips asked that Jenny review that report.
I mean, I think the one thing that seems a little odd about it is that at the end of the year, we were only at 83% of the revenue, but I believe that's because and correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, the TUT Measure A and the city cost plan doesn't get ported over until after that. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, I apologize. Yes.
Right.
I just wanted to state that the numbers were not final, and they will not be final until after fiscal close is complete, which should be at the end of the month.
Okay, Mr. Phillips, you good with that?
I'm good.
Okay, everybody else is good? All righty, thank you, Jenny. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's all right. Okay, now we can move on and approve the consent calendar, act on by one motion, the items in the calendar. Does anybody have any other discussion at all? Did we have any public comment on this item, Robin?
No public comments received.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent calendar as is.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. And the vote, please, Robin?
Councilmember Mahovey,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We're moving into item 15, which is our new business. And first on that item will be the public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding. I already said at the beginning of the meeting that item B will be pulled until our next meeting in September, the first meeting in September. But right now we're going to have a public hearing on this item. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Robin, do we have anybody from the public?
No, nothing on this item.
Okay, motion to close the hearing, please.
Madam Mayor, I think just point of clarification, it would be appropriate to turn it to staff for a quick presentation if staff had one.
Oh, okay, great. Does Elaine, is there something that you would like to present on this item?
I would. Thank you very much, Mr. Pucci.
Sorry.
I am certain that you have all had an opportunity to review the information on the CARES Act CDBG funding that's available, but I do want to talk through it a little bit, both to provide the information to the council, but also to the public that this funding is available. And in part, because public input is a required component of submitting an application, but also because I think that it is important and relevant to consider appropriate applications. So with that said, as you are all aware, the CARES Act is a congressional funding package that was approved in March of 2020 in response to the COVID pandemic. A component of that funding was provided to California Housing and Community Development from HUD through their CDBG or Community Development Block Grant program, specifically for COVID response. And eligible applications can include assistance to businesses and micro enterprises, public facilities improvements, acquisition of real property for treatment or recovery of infectious diseases, or funding for public services. And all of those different activities have to have a nexus to COVID-19. In addition to that, the projects are also required to meet the federal and national objectives. Currently, staff has had discussions regarding different applications we can submit. We are allowed to submit up to 3 applications. The city was allocated $70,042 through this program, and the Inyo County has been allocated $86,899 through this program. Inyo County has offered to partner with the city of Bishop to share their funding with us. In exchange for that, we would partner on one of our activities with them directly. But the total amount available to us is $156,941. So the applications that staff have been discussing specifically include purchasing materials needed to outfit the ambulance that was generously donated to the city of Bishop to make it available and functional to support the other ambulances as in response to this pandemic. And part of that application would also include procuring a climate-controlled storage facility for PPE. And that is specifically the program that Inyo County would like to partner with us on. So in exchange for an MOU in which we can share this pool of funding, they would have access to 50% of that climate-controlled facility. We've also considered developing a program for micro enterprise grants to help small businesses that would allow for up to $20,000 per application, though it might be cumbersome to administer through housing and community development. We've also considered supplementing community services programming to provide additional childcare options in the community, or hiring consultants to assist with economic development. We've received the fortunate news today that the deadline for the application has been extended to September 21st, which is unfortunately due to the wildfires that are affecting communities across the state. So that said, if possible, I would invite the council to provide feedback or discussion on potential applications. As Mayor Smith has said, item B has been pulled, so I will return to the council on September 14th with a resolution that specifically describes the 3 applications we intend to submit for the council's consideration and approval. That concludes my report on this item. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you for your report. Following that, does anybody have any questions?
So Elaine, these 3 grant proposals, we have to define ahead of time what the funding is going to be used for. Is that correct?
Very specifically. Yes.
Very specifically. Okay. And do we have an idea, an estimate of how much the climate controlled PPE and the ambulance stuff is going to cost? Is that going to be equal to the amount that the county is available for?
I believe the budget that was provided to me by Fire Chief Dell was approximately $40,000. So it would be approximately 50% of the county's funding.
Okay.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Personally, I'd like to see if we could use some of those funds to help people that have been say lost their jobs due to COVID, to assist them with paying rent, if possible.
I would be very happy to look into how I know that rental assistance is allowed under this application, and I'd be happy to investigate what the administrative burden would be for the city to do that, and potentially prepare an application.
I mean, I'm sure it might come as part of the PPE, but it would it might behoove us to look into using some of this funding to get, say, cleaning stations, like hand washing stations that we can put throughout town to try and, because it is for COVID, combating COVID, right? So that might be also another item that it would be good to work into a proposal.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
I like the option of helping the ambulance and additional PPE materials. I think that helping small businesses has been covered with the county's grant application with their Revive program that they've just recently rolled out. So it seems like that might be a duplicate use of funds if we were to use this money in that way.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a good point. This funding source specifically prohibits duplicative funding, and that could become problematic in administering.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd say thank you. I think it's a great program, and I agree with Karen. You know, I think the money's going to disappear rather quickly, and I think the ambulance and the COVID PPE is a good start.
You know, we didn't discuss like the child care options. I don't know what the needs assessment is in the community. I know it's really, you know, I also that might be somewhat covered because I know the city is doing their program, but it isn't free. You know, like there's a lot of families that might not be able to afford it. So maybe it could be some sort of assistance if there is room in that program for people that are in need. But the fact that that program exists, I know is a huge help to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, keep those thoughts going because we're going to continue that. This is our public hearing portion of this, and we're bringing it back. So lots of good ideas.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. And the vote, please, Robin?
Councilmember Mahovey,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, as we mentioned, item B will be covered at our next council meeting. Item C is the sale of Sunrise Mobile Home Park Unit Number 1. I believe that's you, Mr. McElroy.
Yes, that would be correct, Madam Mayor. Good evening again. Just to give you guys a quick staff report, the background and history, the Sunrise Mobile Home Park currently has 6 remaining city-owned units. These units become available, when these units become available, they are listed for sale through contract with Bishop Real Estate, Rasmussen and Associates. Currently, unit number 1 is vacant and has been prepared for sale. The listing price of this unit is set at $31,000. In order to maintain the momentum for sale, giving the city administrator the authority to approve the offer of $31,000 or more would be beneficial to the city. The sale of this unit was not in our current budget, and Attorney Pucci has reviewed this item and finds that the recommended action complies with the law. And at this time, I would make a recommendation that the council consider to give the city administrator the authority to approve the sale of Sunrise Mobile Home Park Unit 1 for the sale price of $31,000 or more and execute any necessary documentation to finalize said sale. Thank you.
All righty, thank you very much, Dan. Anybody have any comments or questions on this? More money is always good, right?
I I'm sure this is information that's been passed along, but I would want to remember, is there terms of like income for the sale? Like longevity of living in Bishop? I can't remember.
There is a whole set of prerequisites that go with it. One of them is it is income based, is age based. So those are the two real defining factors in being able to purchase or to pay rent to the city within Sunrise Mobile Home Park.
Okay, thank
Hey,
you.
Dan, along the same lines, I know there's some kind of list that people can get on, and then basically the higher up on the list, the more opportunity to have. Is that both for renting and buying, or is that just for renting them out?
No, because our sales actually go through a private sale, that we go with basically the highest listed cost on those. So it only has to do with rents. Unfortunately, what we're typically doing is when a unit becomes available, we're no longer renting them out. We're trying to sell them. That is ultimately beneficial to the city in more ways than one, but we can get into that at another time. So.
Okay,
So
good.
I guess another question would be, let's say somebody buys this and they're elderly and they're in there for 5 years or so, and they pass away, then their family has to basically sell it to someone else. Do we get to see if the next buyer meets our criteria?
Well, no, that would all be done back through a realtor. It would be a private sale, and they would have to meet those requirements. Those requirements always have to be met, no matter what. But no, that would go back to the family, and the family would make those arrangements. A lot of times for us, it's hard to get a hold of family. That's one of the unnecessary things. So Carrie handles a lot of that. You guys, she puts a lot of work into it, to contacting family when something like this does occur, and making sure that the family is set up to sell. Not only that, is getting all the items and everything out of the units as well. So it's not to do.
So one more question. I'm sorry.
Dan, what's the age requirement in Sunrise?
I believe it's 65.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any stipulation when they purchase this that once it's not occupied, do they have any kind of time limit in which they have to sell it? I mean, I guess potentially somebody could buy it and then just leave it empty for 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of times we do see that. So what typically happens is somebody will go to the care center, let's say, for an extended period of time. We work with that owner, both private and our renters, to make sure that everything is taken care of at their unit. We do have spare keys to the units. So if need be, we can make sure that animals are taken care of. And, of course, heat is on in wintertime, so to prevent freezing and breaking or anything like that. So typically we handle all of that as well. So.
Thank you.
That's
You got
great.
it.
I know the people in Sunrise, they really appreciate their little community there. I've always been so glad that we've been able to keep that for them. Okay, anybody have anything else on item C? Robin, any public comment?
No public comments were made.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we give the city administrator the authority to approve the sale of Sunrise Mobile Home Park Unit Number 1 for the sales price of $31,000.
Second that motion.
What? I'll put it in front of me. And to
She was
execute.
gonna Karen's gonna second anything you're saying, Jim.
Okay. And to execute any and all necessary documentation to finalize said sale.
And Karen seconds.
Okay.
And the vote, please, Robin.
Councilmember Mahovey,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
I'm going to
Thank
assume
you.
there was no
Motion passes
public comment.
5-0. And there was no public comment, in case anybody didn't hear that.
Just double checking, Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay, item D, Annual League of California Cities Virtual Conference Designation of Voting Delegate and Alternate or Alternates. Mr. Phillips, is this you handling this?
Robin, do you want to handle it?
Okay, I can do that. The League of California Cities Annual Conference is scheduled for October 7th through the 9th this year via video conference. Each year, at least one council member is appointed to participate and attend the annual conference, and each year, council is also required to take action to designate one voting delegate and up to 2 alternates in order to vote at the League of California Cities annual business meeting. This year, due to the COVID pandemic, the business meeting will be conducted virtually and is scheduled on Friday, October 9th. The full conference registration for the City of Bishop would be $50 per person. Budget impacts, as I mentioned, the conference will be held virtually. It's $50 per person. Because it is held virtually, we'll be saving approximately $1,450 per person, $1,450, since we're not traveling and staying at hotels. City Attorney Pucci has reviewed this item and finds that the recommended action complies with the law. If council has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'd like to recommend that council appoint the voting delegate and alternates for the League of California Cities annual business meeting on October 9 this year.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Do we know what the voting is going to contain, the items, or that's not out yet, Robin?
You know, I wasn't expecting it, but I did see it in my emails that popped up today, so we can have those resolutions for you to review prior to action to be taken at the next meeting. I did not see how many resolutions were up for consideration.
Okay, usually a couple of them, huh?
Usually.
Okay, anybody that would like to take part in not only the conference, but be assigned to be a voting delegate on that Friday? I am not going to be able to participate with that. Anybody that would like to?
Yeah, I could be involved in that. I was wondering if we could set something up at the city. I imagine there'll be the regular general sessions and then the different breakouts that you can go to. But I just know at my house or here at the office, it'd be tough to just sit here all day long on the computer. So anyways, I thought maybe if a few of us wanted to get together and do that, we could at least have discussions about what we're learning and seeing. Yeah, I was thinking that Jones and Mayor could buy us dinner again.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I probably should have mentioned earlier that Councilmember Ellis has been elected as an officer of the region group for the California League of Cities. Jim, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, on Friday it was an honor to be made vice president of the Desert Mountain League to represent us, including cities of Barstow, Apple Valley, Lancaster, Ridgecrest, all up and down the 395 corridor and some other cities. So it's an honor. I do want to attend the conference, but Chris, you're more than welcome to be the voting delegate. I've done it for the past 4 years. And but I do want to attend. I think it's a great opportunity to hear what's going on, and especially in light of the chaos that's happening in our whole state with COVID. You know, see where we are and where we stand, and see what the future holds.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say last year when I went, it was very informative. There were a lot of really interesting talks. So I'd be happy to attend some of those virtually. I am used to sitting at a computer all day, so I think I'm okay with that, Chris. But I'd be happy not to be the voting delegate.
Can we nominate right now? Could I nominate Chris as the voting delegate?
Yes, and can we consider an alternate in case something happens? At
Yeah,
least
can we-
one.
Jim?
Jim,
Jim?
you will be the alternate?
I will nominate myself to be alternate. There you go, Karen.
We already did.
So we just need a motion to state that.
So,
These new
Mr.
speakers.
Pucci, if we did something at the city, I know we've sometimes had all council members and staff and everybody participate for $50 a person. Can we have more than 2 council members attending at the city to participate, or no?
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to defer to Ron on that. I assume the league has some parameters. I know that they're taking a big hit on costs and fees. So however that works virtually, I'll let everybody work it out administratively. I assume that the league is going to assume the $50 would be per one person watching or attending the seminar.
Oh, no, I was more, I'm definitely the $50 per person. I was thinking more as far as more than 2 council members being together at the city, in sessions.
No problem at all. Just simply
Okay.
because, it'd be like all 5 of you attending the conference. It's educational opportunities, and simply because it's virtual, it doesn't change that.
Okay, great. So as many people that want to and able to, I guess we can afford $50 per person, right?
Yes.
Staff also?
Yes.
Okay. So we know Chris is, and we know Jim is.
So
I'll have
we
to check
can
my
just have-
calendar and I'll let you know, Robin, if I can
Okay.
attend.
All right, so we just need a motion to appoint the voting delegate and the alternate.
Just, I assume, Robin, or was there any public comment?
No public comment,
Thank you.
What?
not on this issue.
Okay. And a motion?
I'll make a motion to nominate Chris Costello as our voting delegate for the League of California Cities and Jim Ellis as the alternate.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And the vote, please, Robin?
Councilmember Mahovey,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Costello,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All righty. Thank you very much. We're moving on to item E, our last item under new business, to discuss cannabis dispensaries. I'd like to, just at the beginning of this discussion, throw out there that this is just a beginning discussion. We won't be taking action on this. This is just talking again about something that we've talked about before, but just discussion at this point. I know we have received numerous comments from the public, of which we appreciate, definitely, the public letting us know. And so we're just opening it up for council discussion, but we're not going to dig too deep into the woods, as our city attorney would say this evening. So whoever would like to start, please.
So, Madam Mayor, if I might, just as a brief introduction, thank you for giving those parameters on that. As you just said, that's absolutely accurate. Staff was asked by one or more council members to bring the discussion back to the full council. At this point, this is a preliminary discussion only. There is no action item necessary or contemplated here tonight. That discussion is generally on cannabis, the existing cannabis ordinance and the possibility of extending or revisiting that ordinance, which currently prohibits certain items, including dispensaries within the city limits. And so at this point, that is just a general discussion and direction to staff as to which direction the council would like to go. I do have, for the council's edification, I have one of our medical marijuana dispensary and cannabis ordinance experts online tonight in the event that we have a super technical question. But at this point, I will just introduce the fact that whatever direction the council gives staff, we will then likely return back to the council with a more substantive briefing on some of the holes or the areas, depending upon what that direction is. So council will likely have a further opportunity to get deeper into some of the technical questions and concepts that we would need to move forward if, again, that is the direction of council at that time. So you were presented with a staff report. And so it's up to Madam Mayor's preference as to whether Madam Mayor wants to engage in discussion amongst staff at this point, or whether you would like to just turn it immediately to public comment. So and get that out of the way. That's completely up to you, Madam Mayor. So if you do want to turn it to staff at this point prior to the public comment, I would direct that preliminarily to Elaine for a preliminary introduction as to just generally as requested by council, what the history has been, and that's essentially stated in your staff report for tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And everybody was able to receive the staff report on this item? Got it? Okay. And Elaine, would you like to go ahead and comment on the staff report before we open discussion?
I could provide a presentation or answer any questions that you have. I leave it to you, your discretion, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, let me check with the council. I probably should have asked Councilmember Ellis, because Councilmember Ellis is the one that has requested that this item be brought back for discussion. Is there anything, Councilmember Ellis, that you want to open with at this time?
Yeah, I wanted to open this up and ask about it. You know, I've been approached from the outside just inquiring about it. The last time we touched this was a little over 3 years ago, and I kind of wanted to see where the council stood, where the public stood, what the pulse of the community was on this topic. You know, in the meetings I've been to at League of California Cities, it's since Prop 64 passed, well, 4 years ago now. There's been a lot of changes, the hits and misses and mistakes and successes throughout different cities in California have been established and tested. So I wanted to see where we were, and, you know, especially, you know, it is legal. There are tax dollars associated with it. And I just wanted to find out what the pulse of the community and pulse of the council was as far as tapping into that, and if it's acceptable or if it's still something we don't want to look at. So there's my starting.
Okay, at this point, Elaine, would you like to add anything to that before we go on to council discussion?
I have nothing to add. I could provide a historical context of when the city had considered a marijuana ordinance previously. Would you like me to do so?
If you think so. I think everybody's had a chance to read that. That was included in your staff report.
Yes.
Unless somebody was not able to look at that ahead of time.
I could provide a very brief overview.
Okay.
Thank you. So generally, As Councilman Ellis said, the city has previously considered an ordinance to regulate or not allow, disallow marijuana facilities in the city of Limits. And that conversation started in 2017 in response to Proposition 64, which legalized marijuana dispensaries, commercial marijuana dispensaries, and businesses across California. At that time, it was the direction of the city council to develop an ordinance that would have banned all commercial activities within the city of Bishop. That was taken to the Planning Commission as is appropriate as a zoning action on March 28th, 2017. The Planning Commission took a couple of meetings to consider the ordinance. There was a large amount of public input at that meeting. And the Planning Commission felt at the time that they had not been given different options for consideration. So they directed staff to develop an ordinance that would allow for retail marijuana dispensaries within the city of Limits. Again, that was considered at the public hearing held May 23rd, 2017. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended to the City Council to adopt an ordinance that would allow for marijuana dispensaries. Subsequent to that, the City Council held a meeting August 10th, or I'm sorry, I have that year wrong, date wrong. The City Council held the meeting on May 23rd, 2017. And they did not approve that ordinance that was recommended by the Planning Commission. Instead, an ordinance was adopted that prohibited commercial marijuana businesses within city limits. So that concludes my presentation on the history of consideration of similar ordinances in the city.
Elaine, one quick question on that. When the Planning Commission approved the ordinance that would allow dispensaries, do you remember how that vote was?
That vote was 5-0 in favor with 2 commissioners absent and excused.
So I have some questions regarding potential revenue. Like what would be, given that the county has been operating some dispensaries and there's a few up in Mono County, maybe we should get some numbers based on what, is this even worth it? You know, if the revenue is so minimal, it doesn't make sense, or if it's, you know, this huge number, then we want to consider the costs and the benefits of having a dispensary. But I think the revenue would be something to consider in our conversation.
Madam Mayor, would you like me to comment on that? You're muted, Madam Mayor.
You're still muted.
Madam Mayor, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
You have to start all over again.
That's okay. I'm sorry. We talked about this morning, and this is one of the items, Karen, that we'd like to allow staff to have a little bit of time to pull together something a little bit more accurate than just trying to scramble a number for us right now. Same thing with
for sure.
Yeah, same thing with the cost of, there's definitely a cost accrued with you know, law enforcement involved, and you know, and dealing with all the issues that come along with that in the city limits. And so yeah, we'll allow that. That was one of those weed things. Oh yeah, that's going into the weed, right?
I do have some information if you'd like to hear it.
Okay, yes, I would. Thank you.
Only for Inyo County at this point. But for fiscal year 17-18, their revenue was just under $100,000. For fiscal year 18-19, it was in the just over $115,000. And for fiscal year 19-20, it was a big jump. It's about $320,000.
And how many dispensaries is that?
That's 2.
They only have 2 in the county?
Um,
I think the other ones that you're thinking about, I think, are on the reservations.
Oh, even South County are on reservations?
And
go ahead.
at my request, Chief Steck contacted the Mammoth Police Chief, and he said they've had no enforcement costs, just revenue. And Sheriff Hollowell with Inyo County said that they've experienced no enforcement costs as yet, and so far, no problems. He also checked with District Attorney Hardy to see if there have been any criminal complaints submitted to him, and he said there were none. So that's what we have at this point.
Just to be clear, right now, the rate that the county, the sales tax that the county applies is just 5%, and the voters approved for it to be increased up to 12.5%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we receive any of that at all, Mr. Phillips?
No, we do not.
Not a portion to the city?
No.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of what we're looking at here is the potential revenue, right?
Yes, and I asked when I saw these numbers, especially for fiscal year 19 and 20, if they'd changed the tax rate, and they have not.
When you're out of work, you know, you might
And
as
it's
well.
actually, and it's, the state has deemed it essential, right? I mean, the reality is that I think like our position here is to do the will of the voters. And I know I've said this before, but if you actually look at those ballot measures and you look at just the results from within city limits, the majority, and we're talking majority is in the tune of like 60 to 40%, are okay with this, and they're comfortable with it without the stigma that has been applied. One of the other things that I would point out in a lot of the comments that we've gotten about that are against it, there's been a lot of mention of like, oh, we don't want it on Main Street, we don't want it by the schools and those sorts of things. And whereas not being around schools is something determined by the state law, not being on Main Street is something that we would determine if we actually take an action on it. One other thing that I really want to bring up to the council to keep in mind is I have heard from a lot of people who are proponents of this that if they're starting to organize to draft their own resolution and put that to the voters. And that, if they went that way, all they would need is 250 signatures. And then the city has to pay for a special election to take place within 3 months. And then we have absolutely no say on how that resolution gets written and what's in it. So that's another thing to definitely take into account as we, as you try to make a strong stance. We're not going to allow it, knowing that 60% of the voters in town would allow it.
The only thing about, we talked about this before, Stephen, is the 60% of voters within the city limits, when they voted in favor of the legalization in Inyo County.
The 60% I'm talking about is Prop 64, which had absolutely nothing to do with Inyo County. Prop 64 was the state ballot measure.
Right. I mean, that's even more general than the county. People in the city of Bishop, within the city of Bishop, were not voting for legalized marijuana shops in the city of Bishop.
But they were voting for it in the state.
Right, exactly, but not in their neighborhood. that it's a whole different, you can't say that the people that voted for it in the state or the county were not voting for it in the city of Bishop.
I will say of those ballot measures, the ones that the county put forth, only one of them specifically mentioned in the question as it appeared on the ballot, unincorporated. Only one of them.
Only one mentioned, what was that?
Unincorporated Inyo area of Inyo County.
You know, go ahead, Jim.
On the voter-driven initiative that you're talking about, I know when this came before the planning commission, I believe they capped the number at 2 within the city limits, so we had some control over what we were going to allow. Can they word that to? It could be every other business and whatever they want, unlimited.
When it's a voter initiative ballot measure, they could say 6. They could say it's okay on Main Street. They could, if they draft it in a legal manner that doesn't go against state law, then do we really have a say, Attorney Pucci?
So, Councilmember Hobie, if you are accurate in the fact that with respect to any initiative, if the voters gather enough, or if the residents gather enough signatures to qualify that initiative, and it is not against the law, then if it qualifies, it does legally require the city to have its own special election. With the city at that point, does not have a say in terms of how that initiative is drafted, and frankly is pretty much legally prohibited from interfering with that or involving themselves or itself with that process. So it would be the city, and those initiatives could range across the board. They could range from a directive to the city council to bring the matter up and to pass an ordinance, all the way to an ordinance or initiative that drafts an actual ordinance on behalf that the city would not have the ability to shape that. So that is an accurate statement.
However, it would still have to be voted on by the people and approved by the people.
Yes.
For us to be subjected to it.
True.
100%.
And the city has to pay for that special election. And they typically cost between, what is it? I think I heard a number between $70,000 and $100,000.
I'm not sure, Robin, do you know approximately?
Yeah, Robin's muted, but the range, depending upon the complexity of it, the range could be anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000 to run a full-blown special election with the county. And it depends on the counties. It is an expensive proposition. That's not a cheap thing to do with the county.
Right.
That's like 60 plus. I agree.
No. And what if the city of Bishop were going to place their own ballot measure and had preparation to do that? Would that then trump somebody else doing a ballot measure and needing a special election?
It really would not trump it. The way that plays out is that under the first scenario, if a group of citizens qualifies an initiative by signatures, and sometimes what happens is the city and the city council is not happy with the way that that's looking. It might be an initiative or an ordinance that is full of holes, or the city council doesn't think is an appropriate ordinance. Again, we can't shape that legally. And so sometimes what happens is, based upon the fact that we're going to have to pay for a special election on our own, the city would put a competing ballot measure on that special election, and then the voters could determine which one they wanted. And so that's one option. Assuming that there is no initiative, this can happen a couple of different ways. The city council here has the authority to put a dispensary or a cannabis ordinance direct it to the planning commission and bring it just as a first and second reading to the council. which is what has been talked about thus far. The council also has the other option of putting the entire ordinance on the ballot for the voters to consider. I will say that with the following caveat, which is it's obviously, well, maybe not obviously, it is too late to have that put on for November's ballot. And so the city would be looking at the next general election, likely waiting another 2 years down the road to get it on, unless the city wanted to, again, call a special election. So did that answer your question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
And I wanted to tag on to what Laura was saying, in that the vote you're talking about, Stephen, doesn't necessarily reflect, as she was saying, the people in the city of Bishop and how they feel about dispensaries here. We all got the majority, at least, of the public comment letters that were written. And, you know, we heard from teachers, we heard from principals, we heard from pastors, and people in law enforcement. We all saw that there was probably 40 plus letters in that are for us to do that, but they were, someone crafted a letter, sent out an email to a whole bunch of people, they copied and pasted it, and it looked more like a mass mailing thing to try and generate the idea that so many people were for this thing. But there were only 3 or 4 or 5 other letters that were actually composed by individuals with their concerns about us needing dispensaries in the city. And so I'm not going to say I discount the information on that one letter that was just copied and sent. I'm not even sure that it was sent by all those different people. It might have been sent by someone with a whole bunch of email addresses. And I don't know how we could check that out. And that's neither here nor there, but of the letters that were written in opposition to it, they were all written from the heart and by people who deeply care about their community and took the time to personalize that. I know we're going to hear from a lot of those. My wife, as a nurse, actually sent a letter. I don't know if Robin got it or not in time or not, but with a lot of statistics about the rise of the medical problems that are facing our hospitals. Anyhow, before we're done, I have probably like a 6-minute thing that I've written. I'm very passionate about this, and I totally understand, you know, man, how appealing $300,000 in revenue would be to our city. So I'm open to hear that stuff, but I hope you guys are open to hear my heart as well after we hear the public comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. However, the 300,000, okay, you know, I'm just saying revenue wise, we would now be sharing that, you know, revenue with the county. I can't, you know, if they were to close all of theirs and we now open them in the city, you know, may it never be, but then that revenue would come to us. But we would be expanding, we'd actually be taking away from their revenue and bringing some into the city. So it would just be spread out. It wouldn't be all of theirs coming to us.
Well, but let's just be clear about that. It went from 100 to 115 to 320. On that sort of a trajectory, we can't just assume it would be 320.
Yeah, well,
right.
Yeah, there are people that I don't care if we're talking 50 million, you know, but you can talk money if you want, you can talk revenue. I'm just saying it's going to get spread out throughout the county and all of their.
I mean, I think the reality is we cannot prohibit use. And when you end up, like, we just can't prohibit use. That's not in our purview. That's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do about that in the state. And the way I see it, all we're doing here is preventing a source of revenue for the city. And we all know, like, what is it, Kmart closed recently. We've had a lot of downturn with COVID, and there's, and the argument that keeps cropping up, every single argument against is against use. And we cannot prevent that.
Well, it is against use in a way. However, it's access. By a lot of the argument is easier access for youth, and also you have the fact of you have the edibles. So I know for a fact that the veterinarians, when the shops opened up in Mammoth, and also there was an article in the paper from our local veterinarian, Dr. Taylor Ludwig, not too long ago in the Annual Register, that talked about a lot of towns and cities when the dispensaries are nearby in their location, that the edible use, because a lot of people, especially youth, or people that don't want to smell like it or whatever. Anyway, there is a lot more human feces around these days. And so the cases of dogs being affected and severely affected by, sorry to say, but dogs eat human feces. And so, just like tons of people around here, you like to go along the canals and you like to go to the areas, out into the pastures or nearby the pastures or whatever. And there's areas where I see it almost every day, places with human feces and rags or toilet paper sitting nearby it. And dogs, they get affected by it. And even in our local community, they've been affected by it, and severely.
So what you're saying is that even though we have this prohibition in town, the dogs are still getting access to it. So our prohibition in town is not addressing that issue.
No, not at all. That's exactly what I'm saying is we have a certain number, but not anywhere near what happened in Mammoth. They had an epidemic of the dogs up there after their shops opened up. That's exactly what I'm saying.
When staff is returning this back to us, can they bring us some information on the increase in dog eating pot feces in the area?
Well, it would be, Stephen, it would be the dogs being seen and treated at the local veterinarian offices.
Yeah, I'd like to see some actual numbers on that.
Yeah, and there's some statewide numbers also.
Yeah, Stephen, I'd like to.
Stephen, the point was that, I'll finish up. The point is that already with the dispensaries we have and with people being able to grow their own and order it online, there's already a lot going on. And having more dispensaries within walking distance of a lot of people who won't travel, even up to Rite Aid, is just going to make things worse, I think is what a lot of people were writing in about. Go ahead, Jim.
And yeah, I'd like to actually have, and maybe we'll ask Russell, he's the specialist here, but back in 2017, I toured the Mammoth facility, and the California law, I had not a clue how deep it was. The requirements for ID, for short of fingerprints walking in that place was amazing. Every single ounce of every product had to be state regulated, state controlled, state mandated. They had to report, they were open to audits. I had never seen that kind of, so part of the children getting this, that's parents then creating a problem. They're same as no different than alcohol. A kid's waiting outside. I didn't see kids waiting outside there with a $20 bill to ask me to go buy it for them. So I'd like to hear some more specific, real, I guess, information from experts on that and see some studies on that. But I just, from the standpoint of, it's not all, go in there and buy a dime bag. The CBD oil, the medical purpose of it also, there is a component of the population that relies on that for, they don't have access to the medical part, but the CBD oil and some of the medical components are vital to them. So I want to look at the whole picture and not just put this into a box of a bunch of teenagers getting stoned and into story. That I want to look at the whole component of the box.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we'll be bringing, we were asking staff, this is the direction we'll ask staff to bring back to us. And do any of you, there are actually some of the comments, as Mayor Pro Tem Costello said, there are a number of template comments that we could just, I don't know if any of them had actually asked to be read, because there's several of them that are the same letter, but I think there are a number of them that said that they would like to be read. If we'd like to do that now, because it's something we need to get taken care of on this item this evening. So
Can I say something before we go into the comments?
Oh yeah, definitely.
In the staff report that's going to come back to us, I'd like to see all of the potential areas where we would have potential dispensaries, because I know that the California state law has certain requirements where it can't be close to a school or a daycare, or there's all sorts of, so it would be nice to just actually see how viable something like this could even be within the city limits, given those state requirements. That's all I have to say.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Karen. Robin, do you have the comments? I know you were sorting through all these earlier, the ones that wanted to be read that are just the duplicate letter.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do. I've sorted them out by people that were in favor versus those who are not, people that have asked that I read it out loud versus not. So I'm happy to start with the people that are not in favor. If you'd like me to start reading those.
Yeah, that would be great, because they asked to be read. So at some point we want to hear from them.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the stuff that's on our public comment right now. Starting with Dee Dee Costello. If I can read this out to you. All right. Okay, please read out loud. Dear City Council members, I'm writing this statement to weigh in on the discussion on whether or not to allow cannabis sales in the city of Bishop. My opinion, I'm going to time this too, just so you know. I'll do 3 minutes. If it's longer, I have to stop. I'm writing a statement to weigh in on the discussion on whether or not to allow cannabis sales in the city of Bishop. My opinion stems from my experience as an emergency department nurse, a substitute teacher, and a youth pastor. I first would like to offer that I did actually vote for the legalization of cannabis and have observed benefits in its use for severe pain, especially with cancer patients. While I value and endorse its profit in these special cases, I have also witnessed the effects that overuse secondary to easier access has created. First, the amount of patients seen for cyclic vomiting syndrome, CVS, has increased. According to a University of Waterloo article, cannabis has become one of the most commonly abused drugs in the world, with an estimated 2.6 million people under age 19 becoming new users. This reality opens up even more issues that time will not allow, but put simply, it has a negative effect on youth mental and physical health, as well as a financial impact on our EDs. The ability to easily access cannabis has contributed to its increased use for recreational and non-therapeutic purposes. This, in turn, has created a sequela of CVS and health issues, especially among our youth. Second, though cannabis use is touted as benign, there are a myriad of articles and studies regarding the effect even occasional use has on students' academic success. One such study published in the Journal of School Health discovered that when students started using marijuana at least once a month, they were 4 times more likely to skip classes, 2 to 4 times less likely to complete their homework and value getting good grades, and about half as likely to achieve high grades. Then when they had never used the drug, too, again, easier access to cannabis will likely promote its use, once again contributing to the detriment of our youth. To summarize, cannabis use has its place, and those with cancer and severe chronic pain should certainly have access. For our small population, we have 2 dispensaries to supply this. I assert that it is not only unnecessary to have more cannabis stores in the city of Bishop, but that would be an ethically unsound decision that would have a direct negative impact on our citizens, especially our youth. As a brief side note, I can appreciate the council's position to look at all ways to generate revenue in our beautiful city. True, allowing cannabis stores in the city limits would bring in some money. However, decisions such as this cannot be made purely on financial gain. 2 more sentences, but also in consideration of the impact it will have on its people. In this case, I believe an increase in revenue will not compensate for its negative effect on our people. Thank you for hearing me. Respectfully, Dee Dee Costello. All right, so that's the first one. And here's one from Mrs. Thompson. And I don't see it saying to be read out loud, but she is a high school teacher at Bishop Union High School. So I'm going to pass on this one, if that's okay.
I think that's probably fine. I mean, I love it that we have received all these, and hopefully council members will read them, but I don't think realistic time would allow for us to read all of them this evening.
Okay, well, this is just the second one that we got this evening, and it's not too long, and it does say in the header, please read out loud. So I will do that real quick. Sorry. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What a privilege it is to be able to participate in the governing process of our city. I appreciate this chance to be heard. Recently, it has come to my attention that the issue of legalizing cannabis sales within the city limits is up for discussion. While I sympathize with those who manage their pain with this useful drug, we already have 4 dispensaries within very close proximity. Many are within walking distance at large neighborhoods. I feel that we do not need to open dispensaries within the city limits. Putting these outlets on Main Street helps to set the character of our town. I enjoy the welcoming, safe family feel that a walk along Main Street engenders. The public areas and businesses along Main Street, East Side Guest House, Schatz Bakery, Creekside Inn, Holy Smokes, the City Park, Giggle Springs, McDonald's, Whiskey Creek, Looney Bean, and Bishop Twin Theater, and the shops in the area closer to Line Street create an impression of the kind of small town that meets the needs of families and fishermen, hikers and tourists, and is an inviting place to stroll about after dark. As a teacher at Bishop Union High School, I see firsthand the effects of drugs and alcohol on our students. I know that medical cannabis cards are available by a doctor's recommendation to those who are at least 18, that those under 18 who need it for medical reasons are allowed if they are under the close supervision of their legal guardians, and that people over 21 can purchase this product for recreational use. These restrictions, however, do not prevent many children from experimenting with some products that their older acquaintances have acquired. I think having the dispensaries a significant distance from our schools plays an important role in reducing the amount of illegal use of cannabis. While some may argue that the legal restrictions are enough to curb cannabis abuse, I feel that cities should be proactive in limiting the availability of the product to our students. Putting dispensaries in town normalizes the opportunity to use this drug illegally. Our students are under tremendous pressure with school, work, social media dramas, family issues, and now COVID-19. The rock climbing walls at Stage to Summit, or the dance studio, or Inyo Council for the Arts programs, or the C5 Studios Community Arts Center, or the Imagination Station are the kind of outlets I'd like to see available to students, rather than a closed cannabis dispensary. It is my recommendation and fervent request that dispensaries for cannabis not be legalized within the limits of the city of Bishop. Sincerely, Greta Thompson, Bishop Union High School, English 9, CP 9 honors. So those are the two that you have not seen. I thought would be appropriate to read tonight. I can say that there's 7 more public comments that asked to be read out loud that are against dispensaries in Bishop. Would you like me to read those, or would you like me to move on to summarize a couple of the ones that are for the dispensaries?
Robin, did you say that they actually asked to be read out loud?
Yes.
Yeah, do we have?
And you've seen them, so I'd be happy to read them.
I guess since we read some and they asked to be read out loud, it would be probably not a good idea to, read some and not the others.
Yep. Okay, I'd be happy to go through them. There's 7 of these that are against dispensaries. This one's might be longer than 3 minutes, but I'll try. So I'll put the timer on again. Dear Mayor Smith, Ms. Pickens, and City Council members, this letter is in regards to the city's decision on whether to allow cannabis dispensaries within the city limits. As the principal of Bishop Union High School and an administrator here for the last 11 years, I have witnessed firsthand the impact that both marijuana and vaping have had on our campus. While I have seen an improvement in the frequency of marijuana-related discipline on our campus, the problem has shifted to one that is connected to vape devices. The improvement is not an indication that marijuana use is declining among our student population, rather an indication that they have found a way to use it without being detected. Up until the last couple of years, the problems with marijuana use by students were revealed when the odor of either smoked or unsmoked marijuana was detected, or if a staff member suspected a student was under the influence as a result of behavior. In both cases, administration completed an interview or investigation which sometimes included a physical indicator test that could provide additional evidence. Subsequently, in the last 2 or 3 years, the number of instances of student discipline for marijuana use has dropped, while the discipline for vaping has increased significantly. This change has revealed that many of those students who might otherwise use marijuana in a traditional manner, smoking it, have chosen to use a vape device to smoke it. Using these devices largely eliminates the ability of staff and administration to detect it as they had in the past through odor, and only leaves them with the ability to detect or suspect use through student behavior or other physical indicators, red eyes, etc. This is a much more subjective process and has resulted in far fewer students being caught while under the influence. These limits on our capacity to police marijuana use by students are not enough of a deterrent to prevent student abuse. We need to rely on those of you who decide whether to allow the dispensaries to consider their impact on the students of our schools so that access is more difficult. Since the legalization of marijuana has now essentially put the product on the same category as alcohol, finding a buyer or legal age is often the only obstacle for underage users. In a community of our size, having several county-approved dispensaries within a couple of miles of the city does not prevent those who want to purchase marijuana legally from doing so, as the vape oil that contains THC is only available through dispensaries. That physical distance does, however, create an additional hurdle for our students who are underage and cannot drive. Prior to making a decision on this matter, I would like to share with you the results when they become available of a study that BHS took part in Marson. So I'll end there. They just want to object strongly on this being close to their schools. David Kalk. I'm sorry, Kalk. K-A-L-K. So that's one down. Let me try the other. This one isn't as long. Okay, to the council, I wish to make it clear that I am vehemently opposed to allowing marijuana dispensaries into our city. I know that times are difficult fiscally and the added tax revenue may seem inviting, but I believe that we should stand morally opposed to allowing a business that preys on people's weaknesses. Thank you for your service to the city. Let's keep it family safe. Pastor Tony Unger of First Southern Baptist Church. Okay, this is a letter from Kristen Carr. In regards to the possibility of marijuana shops opening in the town of Bishop, I can only hope and pray that this does not receive your approval. Many of us who live in Bishop do so and have for many years because of the clean and healthy lifestyles and environment that exists in our community. Substance abuse and addiction are on the rise all over the world, especially now. With mandated lockdowns, shelter in place, and homeschool, distance learning, I believe you would only be encouraging and enabling community members, especially the vulnerable, fragile, and youth, to partake in the use of this addicting product that does harm to those who use it. With teenage children at home, unsupervised for the most part, as parents must go to work, you can't tell me that some won't be easily tempted and pressured into doing things they normally wouldn't do. Idle hands are the devil's playthings. The dispensaries that exist now are frequently often and by underage youth. I believe these dispensaries are capable of fulfilling the needs of those in our community who need choose to purchase marijuana. Bishop does not need more shops enabling bad habits. Along with marijuana use, smoking THC via vaping devices is a huge problem as well. Elementary school age kids are vaping. It's so disturbing. Please do not approve the opening of more marijuana shops in Bishop. Let's focus on more important issues currently at hand. How about bringing other new businesses to Main Street to fill empty, abandoned retail space? Let's focus on developing and promoting healthy and positive activities. Let's focus on keeping Bishop's community admired by many, not the place where locals can purchase marijuana that could easily end up in the hands and bodies of our youth, or the place where tourists refer to as the pot shop stop as they travel through town. Please, no more cannabis dispensaries in the city and community of Bishop. Thank you, Kristen. This is kind of a weird one. It's a two-parter. There's an original writing from Howard Lewald, Lehwald, retired Bishop Police Schools Administrator. I'm writing in opposition to allow marijuana sales within the Bishop city limits. As this is a council agenda item and you are seeking input and feedback, I'm appreciative of the public reading of my comments. The adopted Inyo County ordinances allowing marijuana sales in business locations is not appreciated. We are moving forward, so it seems, towards more shops and expanding availability. This product is a negative gateway substance which adversely affects the youth of a community. As a Bishop Public School principal, I witnessed firsthand that the marijuana mystique and experimentation did to our middle school youth. Once experimentation of the marijuana lifestyle was established, the resulting high school youth were also changed. The ensuing new lifestyles, living high, supported by adults, brought a different and negative perspective on youth goals, visionary thinking, and career paths. Bringing this influence into the city is not conducive to building a future of participation and career-driven planning for our youth. The adult message continues to deteriorate with the accommodation of marijuana sales and its use as a gateway drug. The constant and growing availability to our children is negative. You have an opportunity to halt it. In support of future generations of our youth, I urge you to cease the accommodation of marijuana in the city of Bishop. Sincerely, Howard Lewald, retired Bishop Public Schools Administrator. And then this email actually came from Clint Scarborough. Thank you, Howard Lewald, for your letter to the City Council. It was well reasoned. Your years of experience have served you well. You have seen firsthand the negative results of poorly reasoned decisions regarding marijuana. I hope our council members will consider your letter as they deliberate this issue. Clint Scarborough. Okay, this is from Barry Simpson. Dear members of the Bishop City Council, I'm writing to you today to urge you to consider carefully the approval of additional cannabis dispensaries within the city of Bishop. While I am certainly aware of the need to consider all new business and tax revenue, especially amidst the current budget climate and COVID-19 crisis, I would respectfully ask that you look elsewhere and not approve additional dispensaries in town. Currently, there are multiple dispensaries within the county that I believe are able to meet the demand for cannabis purchases. Adding additional locations could pose additional risk for our student age population. While the overwhelming majority of those purchasing cannabis products do so legally and responsibly, I would be remiss if I did not point out that there are those that are not doing so responsibly. What occurs all too often is a young legal purchaser of marijuana turns around and sells that product to our students. We all know the risk of marijuana on the adolescent brain. I will not flood you with research and statistics, but I will tell you that the use of marijuana in our young people is interfering significantly with their educational progress. I fear that adding additional dispensaries in Bishop will only exacerbate the problem. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Barry D. Simpson, Union County Superintendent of Schools. Okay. This is from Katie Colker. Dear Bishop City Council members, as a local school administrator, I can attest to the increase in cannabis and vaping-related incidents involving students on and off campus in recent years. There is a misguided and alarming thought amongst many adolescents that I've spoken to that vaping is better than regular cigarettes, and so they aren't really harming themselves by doing it. As many of us know, this is simply untrue, as research is now coming out proving how harmful these products are to the adolescent body, especially their lungs and brain. In fact, Bishop Unified School District is the current recipient of 2 separate government-funded tobacco use prevention grants aimed at preventing youth from vaping and other substance abuse. The state of California clearly understands the need to intervene with the problem of underage substance use. Supporting easier and perhaps even cheaper access for our young people to become addicted to these products sets teens up for a lifelong battle with addiction. Responsible and informed use of cannabis certainly has its merits, but a local dispensary would simply create more access for impressionable teens in our community to misuse these products, which are often marketed just for them. I ask that council members strongly consider the negative impact more local dispensaries would have on our youth's ability to learn and maintain healthy lifestyles. Thank you, Katie Colker, Bishop Unified School District Superintendent. And last but not least, I have here, to whom it may concern, rather than saturating your statistics regarding the dangers of marijuana, I will simply say, as someone who has seen the devastation of what comes from drug use, I say no to having more marijuana shops in our town. It's been repeated time and time again that marijuana usage has successfully proven itself for many as a starting gun to other drugs. To have more marijuana shops in our area will be a hindrance and not enhancement. We need people to be sensible and using wisdom during this time of global pandemic, not in a fog of altered senses. Thank you, Jake Evangelist, lead pastor, Neighborhood Church. So those were the 7 that asked to be read that were against dispensaries. And I have 12 more that were asked not to be read. Let's stay there.
Or, yeah, they didn't specifically ask to be read, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you'd like, I'll go ahead and read let's see, I have 40 of the same, and I can just read off the names of those that I can read one, and you can know who sent those comments if you'd like. And then I have 2 that are a little different. May I begin?
Yeah, I guess if they wanted their names read, if they.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Oh, well.
Okay. So here are the people that are for dispensaries in Bishop, and I'm going to turn on the timer for this one. Dear Mayor Smith and council members, my name is Robert Calvert. I am writing to you on behalf of my business, Ascent Dispensary, which has been operating in Mammoth Lake since January of 2019. Previous to that, I operated Mammoth Lakes Wellness for almost 8 years, from November 2010 to July 2018. After 10 years in the legal cannabis industry, I can tell you that I know this business as well as anyone in the Eastern Sierra. Right now, you are considering whether to allow recreational cannabis dispensaries to operate within the city of Bishop, and understandably, you have a number of serious concerns. I would like to address those concerns based on the actual experience that I have had in operating such a business in Mammoth Lake. Ascent is subject to a myriad of both state and local regulations with respect to safety, security, and operating procedures, unlike any business I've ever owned. Ascent has installed state-of-the-art measures to meet state requirements and to ensure the safety of our guests and the community as well. As I stated at the January 28, 2019 council meeting, I'd be more than happy to offer a tour for each of you. With regards to crime in general, the only incidents for which the police have been notified in the course of doing business for over a year and a half was shoplifting that was exposed by the camera security system. MLPD arrested everyone who shoplifted. One thing we would like to emphasize with respect to the cannabis business is that while the City Council has the power to prevent dispensaries from operating within the city limits, the truth is that cannabis is so readily available to residents of the city, a prohibition is simply not going to have any measurable effect on the consumption of cannabis in Bishop. Prohibition is something that this country has had experience with, and whatever the pros and cons of the consumption of alcohol might be, we know that from almost 100 years ago that prohibition didn't keep anyone from drinking, but it did create a tremendous leap in criminal activity that in many ways continues to this day. Cannabis is no different. In the absence of a legal cannabis outlet, the black market thrives. I'm sure all of you are aware of the recent illegal pot farm found in the Indian forest. The marijuana that they grow is not sold through legal cannabis shops. It is sold on the black market, untaxed and unregulated. Refusing to give local citizens the opportunity to buy legally is tantamount to encouraging the sales of black market marijuana in ways that cannot be regulated and most likely are, in part, being sold to minors that should not be in possession of such a product. Speaking of children, a legal dispensary is not allowed to sell and underage minors, and this is not mere window dressing. The dispensary is obliged to record proof of age documentation from each customer with which it does business. Every customer who enters in our dispensary is required to produce proof of age by means of a government document, their photograph and license. This information is required to be retained by the store. It's available for examination by state and local authorities on demand. So I'll stop there. But it goes on another paragraph. Definitely don't need that. Okay, this is from Clay Dawson. Dear Bishop City Council, I'm sure I'm not the only one of us who was born in Bishop and raised among the freedom-loving citizens of the Eastern Sierras. Not only does the current social-economic situation as a result from the global pandemic makes the choice to add to the struggle, unemployment, and desperation seem inappropriate, but taking away one more asset from the already disenfranchised people of this country is flat out wrong. Think of the impact this decision will have on the hardworking and enterprising families like Jake and Alina Wagner. For the last decade, they have followed the rules and guidelines put in place by the cities, state, and country, fought their way through an ever-changing system, and established a business they could be proud of, all in the effort to keep food on the table of their native family. Personal choice and the ability to preserve this and stake a claim in this great country is integral to the future we all ought to desire. It's not about what the product is, it's about what taking it away represents. Thank you for your time and community service, Clay Dawson. I live in Bishop. So those are the two that were different than the others that I received. And there were 40 of the same, more or less, a little slight change perhaps, and not much. But all in favor of dispensaries.
Okay, so the ones that were kind of the format letter, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I'll read one, and then that way I'll just read the names of the people that turned them in. Okay. Dear Bishop City Council, I'm writing to urge you to support lifting the moratorium on cannabis sales in the City of Bishop. The City of Bishop is losing a large margin of tax revenue by not allowing cannabis sales within city limits, while the county of Inyo is benefiting off of tax revenue from cannabis dispensaries like Pals and Sierra Green right outside the city limits. Our city could largely benefit from the high increase in tax revenue we would receive as a result of cannabis sales. As I know safety is a concern, research conducted by the National Institutes of Health shows that the legalization of marijuana across states in our country is not associated with an uptick overall criminal activity. The results show that densities of marijuana outlets were also unrelated to property and violent crimes in local areas. You also must be 21 plus to enter a facility, and with cannabis dispensaries under a microscope, we wouldn't have to worry about our local children having access. I respectfully request that you abide by state laws in support of cannabis dispensaries and lift the moratorium on cannabis sales locally. Best regards, Jeff Barton. That was Jeff Barton. Okay, so the others that pretty much stated the same thing was Doug Barron, Mitch Starfish, no, sorry, Micah Starfish. Someone's called, well, they don't have their name here, but it says freeyourself@att.net. Brian McElwin, Kyle McFarland, Donna, I'll do my best, Gardu, G-A-U-D-R-E-A-U. Lisa Audenweller, Chris Platero, Laura Gracie, Brett Leitner, Elena Zamora, Gary Nelson, Ann Leas Johnson, Bryce Polak, Pearl Vasquez, Benjamin Lee, Donna Gordo, Donna Lewis, Jeb Radcliffe, Jean Drummond, someone named Autumn Robinson, Laura Rothschild, Thomas Carr, Wendy Hout, H-A-U-T, Hout, Greg Garfield, Jennifer Leitner, Shalane Respondic, Andrea Ramras, Rima Rakowskis, Emma Fogg, Jessica Laundrie, Nicole Dupont, Ben Los, Sean Money, Luke Martinez, Monica Thurston, Chris Lloyd, John Peckham, and Shaz Logan. And we had, let's see, two others that were for dispensaries but asked not to be read.
Did anybody recognize any of those names as people you know that live in Bishop?
Yeah. They're voters, Chris.
From where?
From down.
Well, I didn't recognize one name, and I've been here 33 years. And so I honestly asked, does anybody know those people or recognize any of those names as people that you know, you bump into or shop with? Or
I didn't recognize any of the list of the template people, no.
Yeah, that's what I meant is.
There was an acupuncturist in town. There was a business owner on Main Street. I mean, you're going to tell me you know everybody in town?
No.
We know you know all the ministers since they all sent us messages before the agenda was even out.
Yeah, and the fact is I didn't even tell them to. They asked me. They just got it. We have a couple that really follow what's going on in the city. No, but it was, Stephen, it was an honest question of, And I glad you recognized a few of those names, but
yeah,
that's why I asked everybody to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I think it's just the comment, you kind of wonder when it's just, a letter like that that's kind of generated. And so that was the concern, I guess, is that, they were just names to the same letter anyway.
But I guess my question is, in that regard, does it discount their sentiment in your mind?
I don't think it discounts anything. I think it just, obviously it's, they didn't have something that they wrote themselves that they were feeling, particularly if I wanted to, if I was really passionate about something or, really had something to say, and you would too, you would want to say what you want to say, not just, ditto, I'm ditto to that, that sort of thing. Anyway,
to me, it seems like,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Just to say, it seems like one of their friends sent out a mass email to everybody and said, hey, if you want to see a dispensary in Bishop, then copy and paste this letter and send it in and say you want it read aloud, and copy paste send, put their name in the front, and that's that. Not the same level of buy-in, that, as Laura was saying, if you were passionate about something, you would expect.
Sure.
I mean, it's no different than it's no different than like just a signature. If you're gonna sign something in favor of something, you don't have time to write an impassioned letter. It's a vote is a vote, an opinion's an opinion. It's not passion or not. It's you're either for it or against it, regardless of the amount of passion you have regarding something. And so I think what our job is to do is to really see what the people want, not how much passion a certain group of people want.
Yeah, right. It's not, we're not gauging a certain level of passion. There's obviously, a lot of people, it comes down to what it sounds like is, a lot of people, it's obvious that it's not healthy for young people. And that's one of the things that I talk about, that I mentioned, is that, the access for the young people. And yeah, I know that, they can't go in there and buy it, but of course, it's not going to take very much for somebody to get paid to go in and buy for people. And it just provides a easier access here in town, especially with students going around town and whatnot. But, people that need it, of course, they have it available to them. But also for me, a lot of it seems like for us council members is one of the big questions. It comes down to the revenue portion of it, because I know that's come up a lot in it. So it's weighing out, like you said, Karen, what the people want versus, it is the potential for the revenue, or, the revenue factor, does it, outweigh in our minds what the people are saying? And, that there are a lot of people that are very much involved in our community, especially the education of the children, who are, very emphatic that they see it being detrimental.
I'd like to soon read the statement that I prepared, because I am passionate about this. But I wonder if I could ask Chief Stack, with your experience both here and other places, what your experience has been, and if you could weigh in on what you think potential problems or benefits could be of a dispensary in Bishop.
Boy, great discussion. I'm not quite sure what I can offer at this point. I certainly appreciate all the people who shared have written in, just maybe short, reflecting on years ago training that I had, a conference that I went to where objective experts were speaking to the group from Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. And they reflected a level of regret and disappointment how as to the consequences of legalizing it, marijuana. They spoke of increase of homelessness, increase of overdose in children, driving under the influence, I believe an increase of fatalities. It was tough for them to talk about. But that was a few years ago, and things have changed. And tonight, I don't have any statistics for you one way or the other. We did try a little bit a couple of years ago. I think one of you mentioned it. The gentleman from Mammoth came down and spoke to council, and I verified some of what he said through the police chief up there. He put together a very safe business up in Mammoth, and we haven't heard any complaints other than what he reflected tonight. I think he was one who wrote in maybe shoplifting. So I have no idea on the revenue stream. I've read some articles where it's fantastic and others where it's not so much. Maybe that's just the business plan and the location. I don't know. I think it's terrible. It always has been to see people, their overuse of marijuana or alcohol or any kind of drug and the consequences of it. So I completely understand what the teachers are saying as well. But it's just a very tough topic. And in terms of probably where it boils down to what would our role be at Bishop PD if we were to allow one in, it would just simply add another layer. We're not afraid of it. We can deal with it. Just add another layer of work, another business that we would have to serve and keep an eye on, depending on the owner and the business plan and with the city's conditions. That would probably dictate how much time we spend at the business, and hopefully none at all. But likely there would be some level of enforcement activity. Something will fall through the cracks. So it's a tough one. I mean, if we could, I wish I could fix it for you tonight, but I just can't at the moment. It's I think we need a new study to look at some statistics. They may look different today than what I learned 3 or 4 years ago at the conference. And then collectively we need to come together and make a decision.
I had a quick question with regards to minors getting access to, say, alcohol. Is it the ABC that does sting operations, or is it the PD?
Combination of both. ABC has the authority to do that, but typically yearly they offer grants, which we got the grant maybe either last year or the year before. The shoulder tap, I think, is what you're referring to, and we did them. And they just give us the money to do a certain amount of operations. And then when the money runs out, we stop.
And so, I mean, I would imagine if with regards to children having access, I mean, if the dispensary is selling to minors, that would fall under your purview to catch them through these sting operations. And could you be doing, is there like detective work that you can be doing to like, since everybody who purchases at these places has to have an ID that's presented to enter, and your purchase is tied to your ID, isn't it easier to like actually backtrack and find out who's supplying kids?
It can be done. It just depends on the information that's presented to us. We might be in our tails as well. It just depends. The school resource officer position that we have that we're deploying now, he would be looking into allegations like that, and there's a built-in component of the shoulder tap on that as well. And that program, as you'll recall, is roughly 3.5 years from now. we got a 3-year grant plus an extension with the schools, and shoulder tapping would be happening on that grant.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Mayor, would it be okay for me to read my statement right now?
I'm not opposed to it. Is everybody okay with that?
All right. I hope you guys can hear my heart in this. I wanted to write it down because, as you know, sometimes in the middle of saying what you want to say, you forget stuff. So as much as the revisiting of this subject has been linked to potential income revenues for the city to help us in these difficult times, I want to point out that the grave financial emergency that was forecasted, and there's no blame or accusation here about the forecast, has not been as bad as was expected. Not saying we're out of the woods by any means. We are in uncharted waters during this pandemic. I would like to state from the very beginning that there are other and better means by which our city can become fiscally solvent than what is being proposed in this discussion tonight. I would also like to state for the record that I believe that cannabis has some amazing time-proven medical applications, and that they are a godsend to those who need them and should by all means be made available to them. I understand also that being in opposition to the sale of cannabis in the city limits is not a popular stance in an election year. 2 years ago, during the candidate forums before the election, those who were in favor of legalizing the sale of cannabis in the city were cheered for. And for candidates such as myself and Joe Pexi who were in opposition to it, there was dead silence, looks of disappointment, and a lot of head wagging. I want to bring up to the council and to the public that no amount of revenue stream, whether it be great or small, is worth the potential negative effect on our community. As a minister in this community, there are numerous individuals that I've worked with in helping them learn to cope with the difficulties of life, to stay gainfully employed, and keep a roof over their heads. Over the many years that I've been here, I've seen that some of these, because of addictions, have become homeless. There are others of these individuals who struggle hard with life and are often on the brink of homelessness. I believe that if they have easy access to walk and purchase recreational marijuana, there is great potential they will soon be homeless. Most of these people I talk about don't have any vehicle. I want to take a brief moment to quote some of the research that has been done on the legalization of cannabis and the effects on our young people. According to a new RAND Corporation study, young adults who live in neighborhoods with more medical marijuana dispensaries use marijuana more frequently than their peers and have more positive views about the drug. Although research supports some medical benefits of marijuana, youth who frequently use marijuana are more likely to experience negative consequences such as increased risk of mental and physical health problems, school dropout, relationship problems, and motor vehicle accidents. The CDC does warn against addiction, stating that 1 in 10 marijuana users will become addicted, including 1 in 6 for those who begin using before the age of 18. They define cannabis addiction as unsuccessful efforts to quit using marijuana, giving up important activities with friends and family in favor of using marijuana, and using marijuana when it is known that it causes problems fulfilling everyday jobs at home, school, or work. I could talk about my own experience. I think you guys have heard it, that for the 6 years that I was pretty much addicted to pot, it did no good things in my life and set me back quite a bit. It was by God's grace that I was able to quit and straighten my life out. Now, proponents who are for the legalization of the sale of cannabis in our community will be quick to point out that you have to be 21 years old to purchase this, and that there are safety measures to keep youth from getting a hold of these substances. We just heard about that. The same argument is made about tobacco products and about alcohol, but I dare you to refute the large amounts of these substances which are consistently confiscated by our schools. We could argue the point to exhaustion about where young people obtain these products. My point and my plea to my fellow council members is this: our unified declaration to our constituents and to the city that we lead is that we will always look out for the best interest of our people. Our decisions have always been about looking to the future, and I believe that we all have strong values about our community, our families, and our children. And I want to believe that we agree that children are our future. Council members, think about this. If we support something that has been proven, even in a slight measure, to hurt those we care about for the sake of money, then what will our legacy be? We and we alone will be held responsible for the decisions that we make, either help or hurt the people we represent. What will be your argument with a child or their parents whose life becomes impacted by addiction to the very thing that we're thinking about approving just because we needed more money for the city? I ask you to look to the future. I ask you to remember the past. What about those who have gone before you? What about those who inspired you to seek, to lead, and to influence your community and to make your town better for those who come behind you? Would they be proud of you approving something to make a buck? This has the great potential to harm lives of our people. Your argument may be, well, it's already here and all around us. Why not share in the profits? And I think that's kind of the main argument. But again, I want to tell you that tonight is not just a discussion. We all know that if the majority of the council, and that's just 3 of us, decide it's something we should pursue, then the staff will prepare the ordinance. And since we went to the trouble of having them do that, you'll probably vote to pass that ordinance. So I want to urge you to search your heart and believe that there's a better way that we can serve our community. I'll also be bold enough to quote a scripture that says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people, a reproach. I believe blessing comes to those who choose what is right. And so I want to ask you to choose that with me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Can I just make one comment with regards to that? That's very nice, Chris, but let's just be clear. We are not talking about approving a dispensary for the singular reason of money. We are talking about this because it's the will of the residents of this town that we represent. We are talking about this to do our jobs as elected representatives.
Well, Stephen, I don't really see the will of the people. I didn't hear that in the comments. I heard a couple of people, that are for it, that actually spoke their own mind, but I'm not hearing that from the people from Bishop. I heard a lot of, very pleading, very sincere comments from people that don't want it, Stephen. So how can you say it's the will of the people?
All you have to look, I mean, all you have to do is look at the results from the election where this was discussed. And I know you're going to use this mental gymnastics to say, oh, everybody knew we were only talking about the unincorporated county. But if you actually read what people were voting on here, let me read. Measure, which ballot was this? This was Measure H, I believe, Measure G. Should the County of Venue adopt regulations which would allow commercial cannabis businesses within the county, including but not limited to cultivation, processing, manufacture, sales, distribution, warehousing, and transportation of medical cannabis? Within town, that passed 60%. And notice there was no mention of unincorporated county, which is the main argument that you guys keep using to disregard the will of the voters. Then Measure H. If Prop 64, the California Marijuana Legalization Initiative statute passes, should the County of Venue adopt regulations which would allow commercial cannabis within the county, including but not limited to cultivation, processing, manufacture, sales, distribution, warehousing, and transportation of recreational cannabis? That one passed 58%. The only one that mentioned in the ballot question the unincorporated was Measure I, which is, shall the county ordinance adding Chapter 3.50 to the Inyo County Code imposing a 5% gross receipt tax on commercial cannabis businesses in the unincorporated area of Inyo County and authorizing the Board of Supervisors to increase it to a max of 12.5% over time. And that one also passed with over 60% of the vote. And so did Prop 64. And so, I mean, I think it's disingenuous to say that, oh, well, people were just okay with it out there. Because if you look at a whole map of the county, we're talking how many hundreds of square miles? And in your mind, you're saying like, oh, the postage stamp 2.2 square miles that the city's in, they weren't really thinking about that. And I think that's pretty disingenuous. So I mean, what I think we should do, and I'm happy to be convinced otherwise, is put it to a vote to the people. And I think that would completely assuage any of these concerns and arguments.
Right, because I think a vote of the people in the city of Bishop would be different than just the vote that took place in statewide and countywide. And then it would actually be a vote of the people in the city of Bishop, which, you know, it's, if that's something.
Pardon me?
And I'm not convinced that the majority of the people who live in Bishop are for this. And here we are having the discussion, and somebody got the word out to, you know, lots of people that we were having this discussion, and a lot of people weighed in. But as was already pointed out, many of them just took the time to, as Karen said, they voted, yeah, we want this, but none of them said, this is what I do in the city. And I asked the question genuinely, who recognizes the names of these people? And you named 2 or 3 that have businesses or that, you know, are part of the city. Again, are those other people, they live in the Bay Area? Where do they live? And so I know that the percentage of people, I don't know.
I mean, Chris, if you're gonna get into that argument, like how many of the pastors are outside city limits that wrote in? Quite a few.
Yeah.
And yes, there are a few that live in town, but quite a few of the ones who wrote were outside of the town. So I mean, I don't think that this line of reasoning where you're using the line of reasoning to disregard anyone's voice is really, like, it does a disservice to all of us. So I mean, I hear people's concerns. In my mind, a lot of the concerns that have been made border on fear mongering without a lot of data to back it up. I'm always hesitant of statements that are like, studies have shown. I'm like, okay, cite me the studies. And you know, I'm happy if it's the will of the people for this not to happen, and I'm happy to go along with the will of the people, because my job here is to follow the wills of the people. Is not to judge people for what they believe. It is not to denigrate somebody's opinion or not. It's not to disregard somebody who sent a chain letter. That's not my job here. So, I mean, I think staff has a lot of, we asked a lot of research questions for them to get back to us, and I'd be curious to find out a lot of those answers.
Right. So that is what we set out to do this evening, is begin to look at this subject again. Councilmember Ellis, asked for the discussion to be brought forward again. And so we've had a pretty thorough, rousing discussion so far. And now we're asking staff to bring us back a little bit more specific statistics, and I guess we continue on from there.
Can we just review what staff is going to bring back to us? We had asked for revenue numbers for Inyo County, Mono County, and maybe the town of Mammoth Lake specifically. And then we also asked for increase in potential policing costs and policing. And then one other thing that came to mind with this discussion was maybe increased use in the schools due to the marijuana dispensaries in Mono County and in Inyo County? Have we seen an increase in the last 2 years? Is there anything else that we're looking for?
I think we also wanted to follow up from Chief Steck on conversations with people in Colorado to see how things have changed over the last few years.
Yeah, I think we would want to look more than just Inyo County, Mono County, but you know, small communities like ours, and you know, look at some of the statistics, you know, coming out of similar communities like ours.
And maybe there's been some correlation. I don't know, but it sounds like there has been a big uptick in vaping. And, you know, is there what's the deal with that? Like, why is there an uptick in vaping, excuse me, and is there an uptick in marijuana? Just maybe if there's some information out there regarding that.
The other thing you mentioned, Karen, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Karen wanted to also know the potential locations. I had that listed on my
Oh,
list.
yeah. Yes. Thank you, Robin.
And there was also a request to get data on vet visits, local vet visits, and information on underage purchases if possible.
Madam Mayor, may I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I think that the list that we could probably go on for a long period of time tonight, and council has every right to go on as long as they want. But my thought process is there are going to be questions that pop up in terms of what individual council members would like to see brought back to them that might just be not right at the tip of the tongue tonight. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable for council members to email Ron directly or Elaine with what you would personally like to see. That way we are not trying to write down we've written down everything that you've said, obviously, but I think that there's going to be some more percolation here of thought process. And I think it would be appropriate for council members individually to communicate with staff as to what they'd like to see. That would allow us to best package this up to come back to you to make sure we're as responsive as possible, but also keeping in mind that there's been a lot of there's been questions range from practical to scientific to medicinal. You all know that staff are not scientists, we're not physicians. And so keep that in mind in terms of what council is asking of staff. But I think that would be the best way to organize this so that we can actually internally then powwow and say, what's the best way to go back to council on all of these subject areas?
Right.
Can
Okay.
I jump in? And Jim, you were the one that asked for this. I thought we had kind of put it to bed before, and you said earlier you wanted to get the pulse of our city and see where people are at. And so with what we've heard tonight and all that, could you tell me where you're at with all this?
I still don't have the pulse of the community because we just have little bits and pieces of the community. So I think when we bring a better package, as far as, in 2017, we brought a whole list forward of what we were going to do, yes or no. And I think it gives a better picture for the public to see. I think Dean kind of touched on, we could sit here all night and go back and forth and beat this up. And I'm a specialist in one component, you're a specialist in another component. We could all sit here and do that all night. I think we've directed staff quite well with where to go to bring us a little better. This is not going to be decided in one night. This is going to take quite a few different discussions. And I think if Dean and the staff can keep dwindling it down till we get to a definitive answer, and then we'll get a feel for where the pulse is. So yeah, Chris, to answer your question, no, I couldn't tell you it's, 180 over 60 or whatever a pulse number is. I just know that it's a little more peace for me, and we'll see where the public takes it from here.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any comments they want to make before we leave it?
I'd like to just add that, same thing I mentioned when we discussed this before, is there's a lot of things to go around and around about, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a substance, it's a drug. And yeah, in our state, like some other states in our country, it's a legalized drug now. It's a substance that it's an altering substance. It's not healthy for you. Anything that you smoke and breathe into your lungs, if that's how you choose to use it, is not healthy for you. And, it's an altering substance that, having grown up with an alcoholic father, I don't care for substances that, can have negative effects. It's also a health, being a nurse and been in healthcare all my life, it's a health factor. It's not good for you. No matter what, anybody says, it's not something that is good for you, other than some of the benefits, definitely for medicinal purposes, especially people going through cancer treatments and appetite, helping with that sort of thing, and a few people with insomnia. But anyway, it's not anything that generally is good for us. But so that'll be coming back, and now we'll move on to future agenda items, if anybody has anything.
I do not.
No? Okay. How about Jim? Do you have any council and committee reports for us tonight?
I'll leave it real short. I do want to talk about something. I got brought in on a group called Sierra Trash Eliminators in the past week. It's a group on Facebook that started out of Mono County through June Lake, Mammoth, and they go out and clean up areas, and they're well organized. They practice a lot of safety, little trash picker-uppers, grabbers, buckets. They post to areas, and people among the communities actually post pictures of an area that has been overrun and has a lot of debris. And these people, they're all volunteers, go out and handle it. And I went out over the weekend at the bequest of a member who could not. They found some wood and corrugated material out in the middle of nowhere. I drove out and picked it up, and it's kind of cool to see this kind of support happening, and it's growing. I just got advised earlier they hit 500 members between Inyo and Mono counties, and this is a group that's out there cleaning up the communities. I know that Karen and I, part of SCOG, we hear about it in every meeting, the amount of debris and trash and human waste and out in these pristine areas, and it's just great to see a group coming together and going out and being a part of the community and making the community better, and maybe setting the path for these people out there who are leaving their trash. So I just want to give a shout out to them and the community that's all involved. It's a great program, and I'm glad to see it in our community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Karen, do you have anything?
Yes, I attended both SCOG and ESTA, and we had quite a few presentations at SCOG. One that was very timely was before California started burning. It was a presentation from Rick Cattleman, and he is the Inyo Mono Regional Water Management Project Development Specialist. Basically, he gave a presentation to SCOG regarding the state of California wanting to increase their forest and fire management capacity in California. And he has a funding opportunity where Inyo and Mono counties can, and then the city and the town of Mammoth Lakes can get together, and there can be a county regional fire prevention position. So we all thought that was, great news, and we'll hear more about it, but that was something that was very timely. I'm thankful that the Eastern Sierra isn't on fire quite yet. Hopefully tonight it won't be, new fires because of the lightning strikes. We also had another presentation about This one is for more of the MLTPA, but they have partnered with a organization called the Innovative Financing for National Forests Grant Program. And basically they are working with an organization that will look at campgrounds in the Inyo National Forests, and they will assess kind of the layout, the capacity, the deferred maintenance, and the location. And then using all of that information, they'll put together a business plan that will explore non-federal resources at funding and financing these campgrounds. So I thought that was something that was pretty exciting, since some of our campgrounds could use definitely some maintenance. And then a reminder that the Eastern Sierra Recreational Partnership has an online platform where you can submit any sort of project ideas that you may have for recreation in the Eastern Sierra. So if you have, you know, anything that you think would be cool, this would be the time to submit any sort of idea that you might have. ESTA was, you know, fairly boilerplate. I really don't have anything to report on that, except that they are handling COVID well. They have no COVID in their office or among drivers, and they're doing their best to service the community as safely as they possibly can. That is it.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, do you have anything?
Yeah, I attended the LTC recently, the Local Transportation Commission. And of particular note, I mean, Destin already touched on this, but yes, Caltrans did say that they are going to be doing some major work on Main Street in 4 to 5 years, but that the planning starts next year, and that they would love to work with us on plans for some of the things that we could maybe do while the Main Street is tore up. So they'll definitely, they told me they would reach out to Destin. I guess they did.
Okay, that was it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, great, thanks. And Chris, anything?
I actually attempted to attend the LTC meeting. I had good internet, and the Zoom link that I had, the hyperlink, didn't do anything. So Ron sent it to me, Steven sent it to me, and wouldn't work. And then even just opened up Zoom and put in the meeting ID and then tried to use the password. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't going to happen. I spent about 20 minutes trying to get in. So thank you, Stephen, for being there. Thankfully, there was a quorum without me. Jim and I actually attended the League of California Cities meeting that would have happened in Mammoth if it weren't for COVID. And that's always very informative. Jim was elected vice president. Good job. One of the things that they asked for collaboration with from the cities, we should talk to Ron about this, is to try and get a letter, and we'll have to identify again who they want that letter to. But one of the big issues in many of the cities, including ours, is the illegal fireworks that are going on. And they're very difficult to enforce. And one of the things that someone suggested that we do is get together and try and get the state and even the federal government to help with some funds to try and do some sting operations. They said most of the illegal fireworks come in from Nevada, and they used to actually watch the big stands, and when a truck with California plates came and filled up and then headed back to California, they would pull them over and make a big arrest. But funds dried up and they no longer do that. So it's just so easy for people to get them. Anyhow, that was one of the things that the league asked of all the cities to do. And with that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have anything to add. Haven't had any meetings going on. We have some information that we've been given, from LAFCO, and county council there that we've been considering and looking at. I really want to thank everybody for being involved and continuing to be involved and to let us know, because as it's been mentioned quite a bit, that's what we look at. That's what we do. That's our jobs, is to listen to, you know, the voice of the people and represent them. Especially want to thank the people that really took the time to, you know, write their sincere feelings and concerns. And just thank you for everybody that participated this evening. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn until our next scheduled meeting, which is Monday, September 14th, 2020 at 6 o'clock. And thank you very much, everybody. Night, night.